Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the ICAC's 80th Plenary Meeting. I'm just going to reiterate a few housekeeping points before we get into today's session. So please, like I've asked you before, remember to keep your microphones on mute. If you need to ask a question, please do not put the question in the chat because we can't guarantee that we are reviewing the chat at all times, but please raise your hand, and you can find the little hand symbol under reactions at the bottom of the Zoom page. Synchronized translations are available in Russian, Arabic, French, and Spanish. And hopefully by today we have sorted out all the gremlins. And if you need to enable the translation, please use the interpretation button at the bottom of the Zoom page, which looks like a globe, and select the language of your choice. So with that, let's get into the session for today, which is the 4th open session, Rethinking Fashion and Textiles. And let me just give you a little bit of background to that before I introduce Mr. Kamwa Osman, who will be chairing the session. Well, 2021 was a remarkable year for textiles, and for the very first time in history, global textile exports crossed the $900 billion line. So realizing the potential of textiles for member governments, I introduced textiles as a full-time subject, and we recruited the first ever head of textiles at ICAC, Mr. Kamwa Osman. He has 22 years of experience in the textile value chain, including production, teaching, retail brands, and in government for policy formulation and implementation. Now, myself and Mr. Osman have devised a textile strategy, which he has already shared with you on the first day of the plenary meeting. And what we want to do is we want to connect the textile value chain, starting from fibers, going through to the highest value added products, and including allied industries, such as machinery manufacturing and dyes and chemical manufacturing. And we will do that via our new business-to-business portal, which will also include country profiles. In short, we want to create a textile global value chain. This is the first dedicated session on textiles, and next year my plans would be to hold parallel textile sessions within the plenary meeting, along with a textile exhibition and fashion shows, etc. So with that, I will now hand over to Mr. Kamwa Osman, who will chair the 4th open session. Osman, over to you.
Thank you, Kai, for such a kind introduction and sharing our textile strategy. Dear delegates, respected speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The theme of the textile session is Rethinking Fashion and Textiles for 2030. In this first dedicated textile session, we have 7 speakers. We have Mr. Suresh Kotak from India, Mr. Alkoham Karedov from Uzbekistan, Ms. Natalia Isaeva from Russia, Dr. Tanveer Hussain from Pakistan, Dr. Lilac Osenjo from Kenya, Dr. Oliver Zestrang from ITMF, and Ms. Belinda Edmond from African Cotton Foundation. I will introduce all the speakers because we are running short of time so that presentations can go in the flow. So our first speaker, Mr. Suresh Kotak, has been serving all aspects of cotton and textiles value chain, such as commerce, economics, education, and research since last 65 years. Mr. Kotak is serving as chairman of Textile Advisory Group in Ministry of Textile, Government of India. He established Suresh Kotak International ADR Center at Indian Merchants Chamber in Mumbai. Mr. Kotak was conferred Cotton in Finance Merit Award by Chief Minister of Gujarat, Shri Narendra Modi in 2009-10. He also received a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018 from Vice President of India, Shri Venkaiah Naidu. The topic of his presentation is Versatile Cotton Fiber, a Composite Economics. Our next speaker, Mr. Alkoham Karadraf, started his career in 1992 as Deputy Director in Straight Foreign Trade Company of Ministry of Foreign and Economic Relations, Uzbekistan. He served as Director in Joint Uzbek-Swiss Marketing Company in Geneva. He worked at senior executive position in Ministry of Foreign and Economic Relations, including Uzbek embassies in various countries. Currently, he is serving as Chairman of Uzbekistan Association of Textile and Garment Industry. The title of his presentation would be Uzbekistan Textile Industry, Strategy for 2030. Now I introduce the third speaker, Ms. Natalia Azaeva. She is Executive Director of Cotton Way, a leading laundry company. Cotton Way was the first to offer a sustainable model of complex rental and laundry services in Russia. Ms. Isaeva has been working in the field of corporate finance, bank lending, and anti-crisis management for over 20 years. With her vast economic experience, she joined Cotton Way in 2019 to oversee sustainable business processes in the company. As the Executive Director, Natalia leads the team and plays a decision-making role. And her key areas of responsibilities include anti-crisis management, restructuring of troubled financial flows and debt obligations, and most importantly, the environment, social, and governance agenda and strategy. The topic of her presentation would be how to transform industrial laundries into a sustainable business model. Our fourth speaker would be Dr. Tanveer Hussain. He's a professor of textile engineering and rector at National Textile University, Faisalabad, Pakistan. He got his PhD in 2004 from Harrod University, United Kingdom. His current areas of research include functional and sustainable textiles. He is fellow of the Textile Institute UK and has published more than 150 research papers. He has won various awards, including gold medal in BSc Textile Engineering, bronze medal from the Society of Dyers and Colorists UK, and Best University Teacher Award from the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan. The topic of his presentation is Sustainable Development Goals and Textile Circular Economy. Our fourth speaker would be Dr. Lilac Osenjo. She is a professor at the University of Nairobi. She holds a PhD in design. Dr. Osenjo is a member of Executive Board of the Kenya Fashion Council. Her research interest is in quality training and professional growth of African fashion and textile entrepreneurs. She has been providing training and capacity building for small and micro enterprises in product development for local and export markets. The topic of her presentation is capacity building for the growth of African fashion and textiles entrepreneurs. Dear ladies and gentlemen, our fifth speaker, Dr. Oliver Zischenk, is from very famous International Textiles Manufacturer Federation. He joined ITMF in 2017 as an economist and currently working as director. He did his PhD in economics from the University of Freiburg and develops a process theory of organization. The topic of his presentation is key sustainability challenges in textiles manufacturing. Our seventh and last speaker, Ms. Belinda Edmonds, has worked in almost all sectors of the African textiles and apparel industries over the past 30 years. Born and raised on a cotton farm, she entered the textiles manufacturing sector in 1988 and worked in spinning, weaving, knitting, dyeing, braiding, and apparel production. Since 2000, Belinda has used her experience to support and promote cotton, textiles, and apparel exports from Africa. In 2018, Belinda joined the African Cotton Foundation as its managing director. Passionate about Africa, Belinda believes that promoting and assisting trade is a critical tool to uplift and protect its people, culture, and its environment. The topic of our presentation is the textiles value chain, Africa's opportunity. I'll start with Mr. Suresh Kotak. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Usman Kanwar. I'm very glad to be here with you about the very, very interesting topic. And I consider the theme itself very futuristic. And my subject is also nexus with that particular future aspect. I see a number of friends whom I know, Terry, Keshav, Kranti, Kai Yujis. Of course, Usman, I have not met you, but I would like to meet you because you have been on the new subject, which is very desirable, and I compliment that textile value chain having been introduced is a step right in the direction, and I compliment ICAC for looking forward and looking through the whole thing. The driving sustainability also calls for to see the ability of cotton. LITY has been separated. Sustain ability, sustainability. So all kinds of abilities of cotton has to be looked into. Thank you. The subject of mine is cotton is a versatile fiber, a composite economics. Friends, I would like to start that for any textile value chain, today, the universal fiber or the civilizational fiber, cotton is very important and pivotal. The value chain has been building on cotton. Of course, there was a backlash to cotton due to man-made fibers introduced, but now return to cotton has also started because the environmental consideration has been become dominant to the world arena, and everybody has realized that if the universe has to survive, the planet has to survive, the universality of cotton has to be brought in, and that awareness, and that is why the theme is very, very appropriate. And therefore, I will deal with how cotton has been versatile and how cotton has been a useful resource and how the cotton has various kind of dispositions which makes it very strong and very formidable fiber for use, not for today, but also for future. And with research on the dynamics of cotton will speak quite a lot of things. So if you view the whole thing, we have to look to very many things. Let us see the greening aspect in cotton has been also emphasized, and there are a lot of avenues and lot of new finds for greening the cotton. The movement is for, say, least use of fertilizer, least use of very pesticide and all that kind of sinews and all those kinds of portents have already started since some time. But the organic cotton is again in vogue, and organic cotton has itself a number of advantages which we will have a discussion together. Now let us see. Apart from environmental aspect of cotton, which has started looking at the ravages done by the other fibers have been so noticeable, and so we are trying to correct the situation, and the reassert of the cotton is taking place. Now cotton's potential and dynamics still need to be tested, and still it is very much less discovered and less identified. Now today, one thing is also noticeable. If you see the retail front of textile, the retailers found with each other on different kind of organic cotton and identification of cotton. Now that has become one of the very strong word with the retailers. So any retailer you find, the cotton becomes paramount, and therefore the world has realized the value of cotton as a resource and cotton as the material which is environment friendly. Cotton is no doubt It has many environmental values. It is biodegradable. It has resurgence. It can grow every year. So it is not fossil. The fossil fuel has a pent up carbon, that is the captured carbon from centuries together. Now, if you see the polyester microfiber, why they do the damage to the environment? They do damage to the environment because microfiber has pent up carbon, which has been captured over the years, and that carbon gets released in the environment, which gives a lot of backlash to the environment. Whereas the cotton is distinctly at an advantage on that. Now, so with all these things, I also would like to realize one point, that ICAC has been playing really a significant role over the years in the economics of cotton, in transformation of cotton, and giving a guideline to the world about cotton as a very valuable commodity. And this kind of guidance is very valuable. And over the years, I have been attending as many possible since 1989. I think I must have attended most of the conferences. So that is for ICAC once again. Now some countries are already doing a lot of focus, and there are two important focuses on cotton, which is pervading the whole system. One is the focus on yield. Second is the focus on the quality. And third is the focus on functionalities of cotton. The functionalities of cotton for use of textiles and other uses makes it very, very important resource. So we must also have a griping understanding of cotton economics as a resource value. It is a fundamental point in textile value chain that we understand the resource value of cotton. The cotton as a very important fundamental resource, and let us see how it is a composite economics. I have used the word composite economics because its economics is multidimensional. Now, what is sustainable and is wherever there is no eco print or less eco print. So less eco print is less net carbon print is very important. Now let us see the resource utility. Cotton is basically, as I told you, it is not a unique component, but it's a bi-component. But with that bi-component, it has a many sub-components. It is food, it is feed, it is fodder, it is fuel, it is fashion, it is feed, it is a number, it is even a medicinal value. Now recently, the gossipal removal by Texas University has opened another field, that gossipal can be used as medicine. So every part of the cotton has some economic contribution. So this economic contribution to the value, it makes cotton a very, very highly valuable resource. So say for example, in a cotton plant, 2/3 is feed, and the 3.5 times cotton is a green fuel and positive net energy too. So this research utilization in production. Another most important point, if you see the world scenario, 50% of world cotton grown in the world is in rain-fed areas. Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes.
We can hear you. Please continue.
50% cotton is in the rain-fed area. So the technologies like we have to also further develop technologies like CPADs, drip, and the what they call is fertigation drip, drip fertigation efficiently, so that we can answer the productivity, we can answer the kind of greenness of the situation, we can stop the wrong use of pesticides and fertilizers, all these kinds of things. So different kind of agro practices are needed and we should do it. Now socially also, if you see, cotton is a big end mass employer. As far as I believe, there was a report which I pioneered, the report from the World Bank for India, which is the NAIP report. And we have found out that the one bale, extra bale of cotton can produce 5 direct, indirect, and semi-indirect employment. So only one bale can produce so much productive strength. So what is high resource value of cotton that we must try to understand, that it has a great potentiality. So as a social aspect also, cotton has got such a rich and mass livelihood potential. So this must be realized to promote the cotton and grow cotton and use in the textile value chain, and which is the subject matter of today, very evidently very useful. Now, and again going for environmentally, 5.8 million tons of coal of CO2 is actually captured, which is captured means by using cotton you save in 1 acre 2,500 liters of petrol. So see the amount of economics, that 2,500 liters of petrol you can save by having 5.8 million ton in 1 acre of so what an environment advantage of cotton. So let us see further. Let us also find its cotton's functionality in other ways, and how should we improve its functionality. Say for example, we should try to have a moisture management ability, and the scientists must commission themselves to improve the moisture management ability of cotton, so that the disadvantage of cotton in moisture management can be warded off. Another advantage is wrinkle free. Now wrinkle free, one Dr. Teli of VJTI, I know in India, has worked out a kind of a coating which can make it wrinkle free, which is environment friendly. It can make it wrinkle free. Another thing is, there is a possibility, and experiments are done in India on colored cotton. We have a small success at Dharwad University, very small success, not a big success, but we are in the direction of naturally colored cotton, and which can, if it becomes successful, and it is bound to become successful, because India used to produce huge quantity of red coconut cotton about 30 years back, or about 40 years back, which I myself have exported and I myself have used. So the point is that there is a possibility in India for naturally colored cotton. So this is another area which can open up the cotton and make the textile value chain very rich, different, and environment friendly and highly sustainable. So another greatest advantage of cotton is abrasion resistance. Now abrasion resistance is a very important point, and for the blends, various kinds of blends can be worked out of cotton to increase the functionalities. So lot of blends are possible with mast fiber and other lignin fiber, and there is a good amount of in 2009 in Rome, FAO has held a huge conference in which ICAC has also taken a part, and all the countries have congregated together to find out which are other natural fibers and which fibers can go along with in a sympathetic way with cotton. And it was a huge find that there are a number of natural fibers which can blend very well with cotton. So now again, now you see, further development, something has taken place in various kind of institutes, which I understand that circularity aspect in garment can be ensured, and lot of work is being done at various areas here and in the world also. So circularity, which is also very important, that if resources are recirculated, reused, and reduce the consumption, and if it is reused and it can be reformed and all that. So all this kind of new dimension of resource preservation and reutilizability, again, utilizability of cotton, we have to see. Now, I understand there was one Texas tech, Namo dye. One company has done lot of thing on nano dye and innovation, and no new startups are going on. Safmira has also worked on the water preservation, etc. So all these are various factors I am mentioning so that we can realize that cotton has a great future, and cotton is now cotton as a plant. Let us see. Cotton as a plant. Now 2/3 is seed. Seed is the backward economics of cotton. It can give oil. So the seed, the linter can give lot of nanocellulose, lot of cellulosic material, which can be used for a number of things, for binding material, for many kind of reuses are possible. Even you will be surprised that lensing, the viscose fiber, they have started using the linter because it is a rich alpha type of cellulose. In India, Sarkot has worked on the nanocellulosic technology, and nanocellulosic technology out of cotton waste, and also from linter has produced a number of products. If you see, you will be surprised that these many, even a product substitute of cotton, cement, can be worked out of nanocellulosic. If you see the nanocellulosic of Sarkot in India, you will be amazed that what kind of innovation and what kind of thinking our brilliant scientists of the world on agriculture are doing. So we have to be mindful of all these things, that the changing world we have to take into account. And there is the total cotton plant, as I said, after seeds, after linter, there are seeds. Seeds can give oil, and what is the residue seed is after removing even gossip oil, there is a DOC. Now DOC is a kind of fig material which can substitute soybean. It has been found that it can very well substitute soybean, which is in very scarce supply, and sometimes the prices are very high. Even the seed corps can be used for oil extraction, and a number of findings have been done on the seed corps for oil extractions and all that. So these are the few examples. I can go on and on, a number of researches. So not to extend my time, I hope I am not taking too long. Usman, can I finish with one or two more?
Sure, please, if you can finish.
Now, so let us see the diversified facets of the plant itself. And I understand that in America, a lot of work is being done by Cotton Incorporated, then fiber engineering, and all research on cotton application. My dear friends, these are the mega trends of cotton, circular economics of cotton. Cotton has immense potentiality and great composite economics. So this is just to expound what I have been seeing cotton throughout my life. All the years I have done this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Splendid. It's wonderful. So now, Caroline, if you can play the next presentations, please.
Yes, one moment.
No wonder he's called the Cotton Man of India, Usmani.
Yes, I was reading his profile and it was really wonderful. He was known as Cotton Man of India.
He truly breathes cotton.
True.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure.
Uzbekistan has a very strong history in cotton and textile sector. Cotton cultivation started back end of 19th century, and we saying that first cotton ginning factory started in the late 1922, making 100 years history of Uzbekistan cotton and textile sector. Within this period, we managed to develop number of textile units, and of course we have a textile education institute. We have a textile ministry, predecessor of us today's Uzbekistan Cotton and Textile Association. We introduced in 2017 in a new Uzbekistan cotton textile cluster system, which makes us more competitive and more reliable. And to 2022, we are emerging us as a sustainable textile sourcing hub. Achievement for, if I would tell you a few words about achievement in 2017, 2022, number of those things was told us as impossible, but we managed to emerge ourselves and to process all Uzbek cotton within Uzbekistan. You know that Uzbekistan used to be biggest cotton exporter. It was ranked as a number 2. Now we are not exporting cotton, but rather we are importing cotton. On top of this, we managed to make Uzbekistan textile as a recognized industry. We managed to receive GSP plus status, making us duty-free access to European market. We lifted cotton boycott, lasting for more than 12 years within Uzbekistan, and our export figures reached 3 billion. We are always providing our Uzbekistan textile industry as a perfect textile chain, from the field to the shelf. And in every part of this chain, we are telling that we have something new. For example, in agriculture, we are introducing most modern agriculture technique. In spinning, we have a state-of-the-art technology. You can see that all our technology is less than 10 years. In dyeing finishing, we are reducing human factor, and in garmenting, we mostly use cost efficiency as an quality control. And we are always telling that we are 100% capacity utilization industry. And of course, few figures. We are reached already 3.2 billion in our export as of this year. We 100% Uzbek cotton processed in Uzbekistan within the country, and we are among only country for the last 25 years which managed to make it. We have implemented project for more than 3.5 billion for the last 6 years, and 460,000 directly employed people working in the industry. As an abbreviation of my presentation, we are moving towards green economy in cotton and textile, and I can prove you why. We have a traceability from the field to the customer shelf. Sustainability we are providing, including organic cotton, and I'm very happy to say that from this year, Better Cotton program start working in Uzbekistan and then already operational in 9 clusters. We have a circularity as a pre-production and post-production waste utilization. And of course, we are pushing water saving program. And as for today, more than 200,000 hectares of Uzbekistan textile growing area is under part of this program for drip irrigation, pivot irrigation, or laser leveling. And we're expanding our industry further to our neighboring countries like Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, also requesting us to introduce cotton textile cluster in their country. And also Azerbaijan from this year requested us to support their industry. So our system getting to be expanded in the world. Uzbekistan in the world textile market is also emerging as one of the important centers. We are planning to push for 5 billion export for the next year. Ambitious figure, but doable, because we have a number of competitive advantages. I will tell you a few of them. On top of we have a competitive price for electricity and labor, we have only 14 days to Europe by truck. We have 4 days to Pakistan, and further we can reach open sea. We have 7 days to one of the biggest market, China, by railway or truck. We have a green cotton, including organic. We have a duty-free access to 2 very important markets. One of the CIS, another one is EU. We also have a UK extended GSP status, and we have a direct subsidy from our government for transportation up to 70%, for certification, for export, and for participation in the exhibition. And you can see the geography of our export. Main market is still CIS, but we are planning to increase our export to Europe and elsewhere. My presentation, including sustainability and circularity, and I will tell you why. We are working with a number of certification institutions, including Oikotex, BSCI, GEOTS, SEDEX, ISO, and as for today, more than 100 Uzbek exporters having those certificates. But as our priorities, it is even more important. We are pushing for efficiency and quality as one of the important. We are pushing for branding, including introduction of Uzbek brand. As for today, number of Uzbek brands already emerging in the market. We are pushing digitalization, including cotton blockchain, which we made it this year. And of course, we are introducing barcode marking system. And we are planning to use green electricity. We calculated that more than 2 million square meters under the roof. There are roofing system in our industry. So we are planning to put solar panel on those roofs, which will make us to supply green electricity for our industry. And of course, here I name number of partners, including International Cotton Advisory Committee, which was always helping us with statistics and information. We are working with RAP, American Certification Agency. We become part of UN Global Compact, and we become part of the Sustainable Pledge this year. So this makes us more close to the number of brands. As our strategies for 2026, the most important thing is entering to global supply chain. And for this, we are guaranteeing you sustainability, traceability, and transparency. We're becoming new sourcing hub. I told you a number of words about it. And we are planning to use not only Europe as our export destination, but we are also working on Gulf countries, Arab countries, and also North African countries. Also, we are planning to increase our export to Japan and Korea. We are accelerating globalization on this issue, and we are raising diversification. Everybody knows us as a cotton-centered industry. Now we are becoming also as an industry which consuming non-cotton raw materials, including polyester, viscose, and other raw materials. And stating about strategy for 2030, it is a little bit more ambitious, but I can tell you only rough direction. First, it would be agriculture. In agriculture, we have a very important thing stating that sustainable agriculture work. We are working out new lands, fertilizing new lands, and putting them back to agriculture system. So it would be sustainable agriculture. Of course, we will keep working on water and soil management, and this would make us even more competitive. Our core would be still textile and fashion, and in there, it would be environment, social governance would be core in our industry, and harmonizing in another international standard, including transparency and traceability, and match the requirements of brand would be another core of our direction for further. We invite you all to cooperate with us in a new project, in export facilities, in searching new markets, in implementing certification. So with this, I would like to thank you all and inviting you to new Uzbekistan, to new modern textile industry. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Natalia Isaeva. I am the Executive Director of Cotton Way. Cotton Way is an industrial laundry services chain. For the last 3 years, we've been deeply involved in sustainable development, but today our segment, Textile Rental Service, is a sustainable business model by definition, because for us, textile is the main source of our well-being, and the better we care for our textile, the higher the quality of the textiles we buy, the better our methods of coding and processing are, the longer our textiles will be in use. On top of that, our business is very socially oriented, which also falls under sustainable development goals. We have been in business for 15 years. We operate 9 facilities in various regions. Daily, we process 400 tons of linen. Our clients are Russian railways, state and private hospitals, kindergartens, hotels, fitness centers, and spa centers. Today, we mostly work with the so-called straight textiles that can be broken down to 2 groups, bed linen and Terilu products, towels, etc., that are used by pretty much all our clients, such as hotels, fitness centers, and so on. Speaking about garments, as of today, we do not yet provide our service to all industrial companies because we, being market innovators, very often have to deal with cultural limitations, because in Russia, many industrial companies and hospitals still process their own textiles. They're used to that. In Russia, we still stick to Soviet-era standards, and that somewhat hinders development of this market. Still, this market capacity is significant, and if we compare the level of development of this market in Russia today with the Western market, we still have room to grow. There is an outdated model where a company has their own laundry facilities on premises. Of course, in Russia, there are still new developments such as hotels and state and private hospitals with their own laundry facilities. This is because even today, the cost of utilities such as water, electricity, gas, steam in Russia is significantly less than in Europe or in the United States. Therefore, as a rule, many companies, such as hotels and state-owned organizations, do not calculate actual cost of processing items in their laundry because they have one utility bill. For example, a hospital uses a certain number of kilowatt hours. As a rule, this is inefficient because this is not part of their core business. We always try to explain it to hospitals. If forward-thinking doctors and medical administrators understand that they are medical professionals and their core business is to treat patients, But we are textile experts. We know everything about textiles. We know all about the modern methods of processing. We know hygienic characteristics, and it is always better to let us take care of textiles. There is transitional model when a company owns textiles and uses a vendor for laundry services. And that's how a majority of companies and hospitals in Russia operate currently. Usually it's a small laundry which is typically located in some basement, and they use small-scale drum laundry machines, and of course they do not have any standards that can be applied to large-scale operations. I'm going to show you some pictures. I am always, and I'm not afraid of the word always, such vendors never comply with the national standards of quality. This is how it looks before and after. On the right side, you can see our processing facilities. This is our facility in the city of Kazan. And that's how we process hospital items. And on the left, you can see a typical in-house laundry of a hospital. You can see the conditions there. Right now, we're offering a model of the third type. This model is based on renting out our textiles, and our company offers not just laundry services, but the clean linen service to our clients, which is used by hospitals, hotels, fitness centers, and railways. Like I said in the beginning, this is the most sustainable model because it is important for us that textiles that we use are of high quality. This is also a sustainable model because we maintain the same standard for all state-owned companies in 4 regions of Russia. And we have the same white textiles of the same quality. They're interchangeable, which allows us to respond to the pandemic. This model also reduces corruption. That is very important because there are no chaotic purchases of textiles every year at different price points. A client has the right to rent only the items that they need, that they plan on renting based on the number of train tickets they sell, or based on a season for hotel business, or based on how busy a hospital is. And this model triggers a chain of positive changes, and that is very important because 4 years ago, we completely switched to buying textiles from Russian producers. 2 large factories have commissioned dedicated manufacturing lines where they produce bed linen. Every year we buy between 2.5 to 3.5 millions of items. We have long-term contracts, and we always insist on long-term contracts with our clients. Our contracts are for a period between 3 to 15 years, and that allows us to plan our activities for years ahead. And at the same time, it allows textile manufacturers to fulfill our orders and plan their investments for the years ahead. On this slide, you can see the breakdown of our services. And here I would like to draw attention to the boxes that say innovations, item replacement, and recycling. We meet our primary manufacturers of textiles, and we always set quality standards for new textile groups they manufacture for us. making them come up with optimal solutions in terms of quality and price. And all our textiles can be repaired. We have our own sewing facilities, and we also use vendors a lot for that purpose. As for textiles that can no longer be fixed or used, those are sold to recycling companies and used as wiping rags or as a raw material in mattress manufacturing, because our items are pretty much 100% cotton. We also work with hospices, orphanages, to which we donate our toweling items, and by that we extend their use. As of 2022, we have in total 8 million items. That is 95% of straight textiles, that is bed linen and towels. We use R5ID systems. Not all textiles of our clients are equipped with RFID markers, but still we know how to work with this technology, and we have clients that use only automatic accounting of textiles. On these photographs, you can see how we work with our primary clients. This is the Federal Passenger Company, which offers passenger transportation services and healthcare. Here you can see how it was before we came to the market and how it is right now. You can see the linen in intercity trains and in healthcare facilities. Here you can see how we are able to decrease the use of resources. It was proven by our historical data and our electricity and water bills. Cost of resources is going up, but we're constantly trying to optimize water use and reuse, and that ultimately allows us to lower our production costs. Our global cost is to provide comfortable and safe conditions for the population of Russia. On the right side, you can see a picture of one of COVID-19 hospitals which were deployed during COVID-19 pandemic. That emergency showed us that, in fact, we created a backbone structure that allows our government to save money and rapidly react to new challenges. We provided linen for 15,000 beds at the moment when these hospitals were deployed in 2020. Besides Moscow, we also serviced Moscow region, Tatarstan, and Udmurtia. On the bottom photograph, you can see a Boskar protective suit that we manufactured together with our partner, Bosco Manufacturing Company. It was a unique project that lowered the cost of acquiring single-use items, and I have statistics that we saved more than 100 billion rubles. So these are the items we can produce as professionals, and we do have this knowledge and culture. I will reiterate that our model allows us to increase the level of comfort and safety. At the national level, it allows us to raise infrastructure standards and the level of service to save budget funds, which is important, especially today and for the future, both at manufacturing stage and at the stage of purchasing items. I'll be happy to entertain your questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello, everyone. It's really a great pleasure and honor to be virtually present on this event. I'm extremely grateful to the organizers for giving me opportunity to speak on sustainable development and textile circular economy. Total world population currently stands at around 8 billion, and it is expected to rise to 8.5 billion by 2030. And proportionately, it is expected that the consumption of textile and clothing will also increase. Currently, total world textile and clothing exports are around worth $871 billion. And it is estimated that by 2030, total world textile and clothing exports will be worth around $930 billion, depending on various microeconomic and macroeconomic factors. If we look at the breakup of different categories of textile and clothing exports, we see that total silk fiber, yarn, and woven fabric exports are around $1.4 billion. Wool fiber, yarn, and woven fabric exports are around $10.9 billion. Cotton fiber, yarn, and woven fabric exports are currently at around $60.4 billion. Other vegetable fibers, yarn, and woven fabric exports are at around $5.4 billion. Man-made filament yarn and woven fabric exports currently stand at around $51.2 billion, and man-made staple fiber yarn and woven fabric exports are at around $35.5 billion. Weddings, non-wovens, and twines at $31.6 billion. Carpets and textile fold covering $17.7 billion. Special wovens and laces around $12 billion. Coated and laminated fabrics $27.27 billion. Knitted and crochet fabrics around $40 billion. Knitted or crochet apparel or garments worth around $262.9 billion. Woven or non-knitted apparel are worth around $227 billion, and made-ups, including home textile, are around $87.5 billion. If you look at the global fiber production, it currently stands at around 111 million metric tons, and out of which around 52.2% is polyester, which is the largest category of fiber produced and consumed around the world. Cotton stands at around 23.2%, and both polyester and cotton together comprise around 75% of the total fiber production. And synthetics altogether comprise around 63% of fiber production. It is expected that by 2030, total fiber production around the globe will increase up to 146 million tons. And it, of course, depends upon different factors, including the recycling or circular economy implementation. Every year, approximately $400 billion worth of textile and clothing are wasted in the world, and this is enough to meet the Sustainable Development Goals of about 59 of the world's poorest economy. Every year, approximately 48 million tons of clothing are disposed of, and this is enough to meet around 45% of fiber requirement for new production. Every year, approximately 73% clothing waste is landfilled or incinerated, and the waste may reach up to 65 million tons annually if nothing is done to reduce textile waste. Every year, 5.8 trillion liters of clean water is used in textile dyeing processes, and this is enough for the consumption of 530 million people for almost 1 year. And every year, 3.3 billion tons of CO2 is emitted from the fashion industry, and that requires plantation of 22 billion trees annually to offset the impact on climate change. Around 20% of world's water pollution comes from textile wet processing, according to the World Bank. And this is equivalent to 3.7 billion Olympic swimming pools. Hence, there is need for sustainable development, which is about meeting needs of the present without compromising, but rather contributing to the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Hence, there's need for sustainability in textiles and apparel, which is all about producing and consuming textile and apparel in such a way that enough raw material and other resources remain available for future generations without harming people and the planet. In a nutshell, we need to take care of the people and the planet in addition to taking care of the profits. So how can textile and clothing industry contribute in achieving sustainable development goals? We all know that there are 17 sustainable development goals and 169 targets. The first and the foremost is to end poverty in all of its forms everywhere. And textile and clothing industry can contribute towards the achievement of this SDG by creating new jobs, increasing workers' minimum pay, paying workers social security, introducing workers' shares in businesses, and introducing workers' life insurance. Globally, 1 in 9 people go hungry every day according to the World Food Program. That's nearly 800 million people. So increasing the land area for cotton production is not an option. We need to increase yield of cotton, and we need to spare as much land as possible for food crops in order to assure food security. For contributing towards good health and well-being, which is a third SDG, textile industry may focus on producing medical and healthcare textiles, producing personal protective equipment, arranging workers' health insurance, reducing use of hazardous chemicals, and banning smoking at workplaces. More than 200 million children are out of school in the world, and only 60% of young people would be completing upper secondary education in 2030. So textile industry can contribute towards quality education by providing free daycare centers for workers' children, building free schools for workers' children, and giving scholarships for university students. In order to end gender inequality, textile industry can increase female job ratios and also female ratio at leadership positions. In order to contribute towards clean water and sanitation, textile industry need to focus on reducing, treating, and reusing effluents and increasing water use efficiency, because 3 in 10 people lack access to clean drinking water in the world, and 80% of industrial wastewater goes to rivers without any treatment. 7th SDG is affordable and clean energy, and textile industry can contribute towards this goal by increasing share of renewable energy and improving energy use efficiency, because energy is the dominant contributor to climate change, accounting for around 60% of total global greenhouse gas emissions. In order to assure decent work and economic growth, textile industry needs to do technological upgradation and innovation for sustainability, give equal pay for work of equal value, ban forced labor or child labor, and assure full labor rights and safe working environment. For industry, innovation, and infrastructure, textile and clothing industry need to upgrade machinery for sustainability, increase R&D spending, support indigenous technology development, and improve workers' access to ICT. So in order to contribute towards reducing inequalities, the textile and clothing industry needs to reduce salary inequalities among employees and become an equal opportunity employer. For sustainable cities and communities, textile industry can provide sustainable housing for workers, provide free bus service or transport for workers, and reduce environmental pollution due to their businesses. Responsible consumption and production is the main sustainable development goal, which is directly related with the textile industry. And textile industry need to focus on sustainable management and use of natural fibers and other natural resources, responsible management of chemicals and all types of waste, reducing waste generation by prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse, adopting sustainable practices and sustainability reporting, and creating awareness about sustainability among all the stakeholders. For climate action, we need to build knowledge and capacity to combat climate change. In order to assure sustainable life below water, textile industry needs to assure zero discharge of hazardous chemicals to rivers and seas and decrease the use of materials which lead to microplastic pollution. For better life on land, textile industry needs to focus on sustainable use of terrestrial and inland freshwater production and sustainable production and use of regenerated cellulosic fibers in order to avoid deforestation. For peace, justice, and strong institutions, textile industry needs to comply with all international, national, and company laws and rules related to the workforce, say no to all types of corrupt business practices, and ensure availability and transparency of information and traceability of products, which is very important in the coming years. And finally, textile industry needs to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Textile circular economy comes under the 12th Sustainable Development Goal, and the target number 12.5 says that by 2030, we need to substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. When you talk about circularity, there are different options or circles available. The easiest is to reuse a textile clothing after use by someone else. Another possibility is to reuse it after repairing to a functionality at the level of the original functionality or status. Another possibility is to reuse after reconditioning to a lower level of functionality or aesthetics than the original level. Another possibility is to reuse it after refurbishing to a higher level of aesthetic or functionality as compared to the original level. Another possibility is to recycle, upcycle, and downcycle material waste. And this recycling or circularity of material waste needs to be augmented with the recovery and reuse of water as well as energy. So in terms of recycling, there are key challenges at the stage of collection of the post-consumer waste and sorting of the post-consumer waste. So in coming years, better mechanisms of post-consumer waste collection will emerge, and better mechanisms of automatic sorting of different types of waste may emerge. When it comes to actual recycling, there are broadly two types: mechanical recycling and chemical recycling. One of the greatest challenges in mechanical recycling is to preserve the fiber properties, especially the fiber length and strength. And in terms of chemical recycling, the challenge is to preserve the degree of polymerization, as well as if we recycle cotton, it is very hard to preserve cotton-like properties because cellulose, once recycled, it gives more like viscose properties rather than cotton properties. We can combat sustainability challenge at different stages of the value chain, starting right from the raw materials by using renewable, biodegradable, recycled, or organic materials. We can also intervene at the production stage by reducing energy, water, chemicals, effluents, emissions, and solid waste. We can also contribute at the packaging stage by making use of renewable, biodegradable, recycled, and organic packaging. We also take care of the sustainability at the distribution stage by focusing on local or nearby suppliers or local or nearby customers and eco-friendly transportation. We also need to focus on the usage stage while making use of such textiles which use low water during washing and low temperature during washing, and they're quick to dry in air and they need no ironing. And also at the disposal stage, we need to use such textiles which are reusable, recyclable, or compostable. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Chair, for the introduction and opportunity to speak today. I'm looking at capacity building for the growth of African fashion and textile entrepreneurs, coming from a design background and as part of the Fashion Design Council in Kenya. And we are looking at fashion and design generally in terms of mitigating some of the global challenges. In February this year, when we hosted Professor Srini, who is the president of the World Design Organization, he challenged us to look at the Sustainable Development Goals and align design practices and education with those goals, so that by 2030, we aim to end poverty and hunger, increase access to education, and address migration, combat climate change, and reduce inequality. And during that conversation, we committed to practice design along those lines. What is our local response as designers? We're looking at design in Africa and saying that there's significant demand, increase in demand for handmade high-end products in the global market. That the global market, there's an opportunity for us to have products that have a story, that have cultural significance, that cultural significance is either brought out in their style or in the raw materials that have been used for those products. There's also an increase of appreciation for traditional crafts, handmade and hand decorated. And of course, this is where most of our women are operating whether in weaving, tie and dye, or in screen printing or embroidery. A lot of women get employment in that area. So we're looking inwardly because of certain challenges that we are facing globally. So our global response is to look at the introspection, what we have in our hands. And what we are saying is that for us in Africa, we are looking at repackaging the African narrative so that it's more appealing and more useful to the global market. We want to redefine African fashion and textile products. And I'll show you some examples of how we are doing that. We also need to re-examine the business processes so that we can get returns on investment in a sustainable manner. So in one of the examples I'll be showing you later, we're looking at undertaking value addition. And this value addition comes in many forms. It could be in branding of the products, like what we have in the tea sector, branding our tea and our coffee and so forth. It could be new products or new users, or new packaging, or new technology, or new experiences with the products that are coming from Africa. What we are saying is that we need to package our African fashion and textiles so that we can export more and reduce the global deficit in trade. What do we expect out of this? Actually, when we practice this, when we do these things, we expect to create more employment for our people in fashion and textiles. We are going to increase their incomes, and we are going to give them technical skills. That's what we do, the programs that we are going to do. We have two case studies. I'm going to present two case studies. One of them is the Kitui County Textile Center, Kikotech, and the other one is the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, Small and Medium Enterprise Program. Out of these programs, we have seen some innovations that are actually good for us to use as examples to replicate and to learn from. Kikotech is based in Kitui, which is one of the 47 counties in Kenya, and it employs over 600 persons directly and many more indirectly. Their indirects are suppliers and distributors and retailers of the products and the raw materials from Kitui and from other parts of the country and the world into Kitui. It is a source of income at the rural level, thus curbing rural-urban migration of the population. As you know, the rural-urban migration has been quite an impediment of our cities. So Kikotech, which is based in Kitui, which is a rural, relatively rural area, means that the people can stay in their homes and actually engage in meaningful employment. It also provides training for the community tailors, especially in industrial garment production. This has never happened in other parts of Kenya, and so it provides capacity building in technical skills. It also supports other local industries, the textile mills, which provide the raw materials that are used within the production center. Also, along with this, it also supports other local industries, and it also provides a better alternative source of income. A lot of the young people were previously engaged in charcoal burning and sand harvesting, which is detrimental to the environment. So what has happened in time is that to curb this dependency on charcoal burning and sand harvesting, Kikotech is providing them with much needed employment. Kikotech was started in 2019 at the height of the widespread COVID pandemic. And it was a response to an urgent need for masks and protective clothing that was in short supply then from the international market. So when the aeroplanes were grounded and we couldn't get any more raw materials and we could get the masks and the protective clothing, Kikotech was the savior in many regards, providing that. And it was a county government initiative at that time. So it benefits the local people, but it also benefited the country at the point of need. Today, it provides uniforms both to the local primary and secondary schools, and also provides uniforms for the police, the local institutions, and the chiefs, and so forth. This is important because what we're looking at here is a local industry providing needs for the local people. That's the important thing about Kikotech. It's not engaged, its focus is not export, the export market. So it's producing for the local market. Kikotech provides, is a source of, most of the fabric is sourced locally. So in providing, in sourcing the raw materials locally, it's also supporting other local industries such as the thicker cloth mills, which is stated there, because thicker clothing mills is then therefore assured of a market which does not depend on the export market. So that's the important thing to know, that Kikotech is internal and depends on internal sources of raw materials and customers for that matter. The thicker clothing mills is not the biggest one in Kenya. Rivertex is more known as a textile mill, but thicker cloth mills has entered into an agreement with the local farmers, and it buys all the cotton that is produced by the farmers. Apart from buying the cotton, they are also providing the seeds, the farmers with seeds, pesticides, and subsidized fertilizers, so that they can ensure that they've got the good quality seeds and good quality cotton harvest, which then provides good fiber for the quality fabric at the end of the chain, the value chain. So that's one of the Kikotech is one of the case studies that I wanted to share with you. The other one that I want to share with you is the KEPROBA, a small and medium enterprise program. The KEPROBA, as I said, is the Kenya Promotion and Branding Agency, which is Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, which is solely concerned with the export market. And the aim of the program, therefore, is to build export capability of the small and medium enterprises and ultimately reduce the balance of trade deficit in the global arena. So it's looking at what Kenya offers when we sign these trade agreements with the other countries. what does Kenya bring to the table, and how does this benefit? How does the small and medium enterprises in Kenya benefit from that export trade? So there's a diagram there, and I hope you can see it clearly, because the Keproba SME project is a multi-agency product development process. And go through a process map, which is the diagram there shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stages before they are ready, export ready, or ready to take advantage of export trade. So we get the SMEs from the various counties in Kenya, look at what products they have, and many of them are in the fashion and textile industry. We look at their capacities and identify what kind of intervention would be good for each of them. Sometimes it is the technology, sometimes it's the design skills, sometimes it is the packaging or the labeling or standardization of their products, or even knowledge of the customer's needs. So we collect all this information, and because it's government driven, it has a broad network of actors, with us as designers playing a major role in the training process. So through all this and the test marketing and the knowledge of the export markets, we build the capacity of the SMEs to meet those demands and to get returns of their investments for the same. The product development targets specifically certain aspects of the SME, whether it's value addition, so that we can harvest or exploit what is locally available. So we look at, in terms of fashion and textiles, what raw material are they using? Cotton, silk, or sisal? What is the raw material that is necessary for their production? And what is locally available? We look at their product ecosystem. What is their product? What is their production process? And their technology? Because technology is very, very important, because technology is a major impediment when you look at design and product development for export. We are not very competitive in the global market because the technology levels is still very low comparatively when we look at the compare with the other markets. And that has been our major focus also, to increase the technology of these SMEs. And at Kikotech, which we discussed earlier, we saw that the entrepreneurs are trained to engage in industrial garment production. And that's the only way we can meet some of the export demands. And then we also look at customer profiles, because different markets, different global markets require different interventions. And so we need to be very sure that we have a good profile of the customers so that we meet those customer needs. We are also concerned about afterlife. When I began my talk, we were talking about what Srini was telling us and challenging us in Africa to meet the demands and to work in a sustainable manner and to be concerned about the environment in which we live in. And climate change is very, very important in this manner. We also look at the trends analysis, because a lot of our SMEs do not have information on the trend analysis. This is because either with technology again, or because they don't have the digital tools with which to analyze the trends. So through the Keproba program, they are given this information. The information is taken from the export markets, and we download it onto them and domesticate it for them so that they understand what it means. And then from our design side, we also look at the branding, labeling, and packaging of their products so that they meet the customer needs for their products. Here are some examples of what we are looking at when we talk about African fashion and African textiles and their designs. So here we have the Maasai factor in modern design. Maasai is a major export of, provides a major export opportunity for us in Kenya. And so from their necklace there, we can see that Wood Charm Limited has made some very nice furniture, with high-end furniture, which is sold locally, and it has its reference from the African continent. This is what we call African fashion or African design. And Louis Vuitton used this Maasai fabric, the shuka, in 2012 for his summer fashion show. And you can see there his model walking down on the runway with Maasai-inspired fashion. And this is what we want to leverage on for us. In 2016, Renata, who is a Brazilian model, modeled this fashion, and the Vogue Japan was in Kenya for the shooting of this their cover, and they used the Maasai culture again as their backdrop. So we have something that we can package and can be used by the global market. And this is what we want to leverage for our fashion and for our textiles to meet global demands, to get a niche within the global market. Looking at Miss Ghana in 2018, she wore a cultural outfit. And earlier I was talking that the reference have a story. Here we can see Adinkra symbols used in the stick that the lady is holding and on her hairpin. African fashion, African textiles, African artifacts all have a story, all have a function. And we want to package these functions and these stories so that we can export them and use them to inform the global market and create a niche for ourselves within that space. Mary Collis is a fine artist in Nairobi, and she does paintings. But we can see Wood Charm Limited here has used those paintings to develop fabric, which has been used for high-end upholstery, which is then used on the furniture and sold in upmarket Nairobi. And we want to export some of these things to the global market and create space for African fashion and textiles so that we can expand our market, our presence in the global market. South Africa is our big brother in Africa, always setting the pace for us and leading the way. And here Lekwork is wearing Stone Sherry's fashion at the New York Fashion Awards. And what we're saying here is that we have fashion designers who can create internationally acceptable fashion so that we can actually compete in the global market. We don't want a big market share, but we want a niche that we can be known for and with quality that the global market will appreciate. What do African designers say? At the end of the day, we are in design. I operate in a design industry. I train designers, and we have African designers who are telling our story to their fashion. We have, they're saying that textiles are essential for the development of African fashion. African textiles. Fofana, Dombia, Mensa, Osakwe, these designers, these great global international designers, join us in saying that we actually need African fashion. Osakwe actually has designed some outfits for Lupita Nyong'o, the actress, and even for Beyonce and Rihanna, they have made certain outfits. And we are also saying that more can be done in infrastructure, supply chain, and international partnerships to promote African fashion and textiles. Kimathi, my friend, He plies his trade in New York and in Nairobi and does a lot of training and mentorship for the youth in fashion and textiles. He makes a lot of duffel bags. And the story behind these duffel bags, there are over 300 women that he's subcontracted to produce the fabric, the fiber, which he uses to make the duffel bags. And from these ones, he's able to keep the ladies in business. And the ladies use the raw material from the baobab tree. And the baobab tree can continue to produce this fiber sustainably because the tree is not cut down. They just use a bit of the outer bark, and the outer bark regrows. So it's a very sustainable fiber to use for products. So Buyu Safari duffel bags are made from baobab as a raw material, and it's a sustainable material. And on the other hand, he actually employs over 300 women in Kitui as well, who make this, who weave the fiber, and then the fiber is used to produce the duffel bags, and he sells them from New York and from Nairobi. Sarah, my friend, is from Uganda. She goes by the name Easy Afrique Designs. Easy Afrique makes bags and pouches from the bark cloth. Bark cloth is a very sustainable material that creates a fiber that is even used in fashion garments. And the fashion garments are made from the bark of the tree, which is pounded through a process of pounding. And it's very sustainable because every 2 years you can harvest the bark and make bags as you go along. So from about 5 trees in the garden, you're able to continue production of these bags, which are very, very exotic and very well hand finished. Beatrice is a product designer, and she makes leather products from under the name Sanabora Leather Products. And Sanabora, you can see the products, they are finished with African symbols on the covers, and they are really exotic and very, very strong because the leather is sourced locally. Again, this is a very sustainable product line, which is also used in making export products. So the products are exported all over Europe, and they are African products made from sustainable material, and they bear the sign or the insignia that they are African based upon the product, the raw material used, and the motifs that are used in the finishing. So to cap it all, I just want to say that African products are very, very important for and African textiles and African fashion are important for our existence as Africans in the global arena. And that examples such as Kikotech provide a sustainable way of responding to global challenges. Examples like the KEPROBA, which is a multi-agency product development process, provides training in fashion and textiles, which then provides products for the local market using locally available raw materials. These are small steps, but very, very important steps for the African fashion and textiles entrepreneurs. And with those many remarks, I want to thank you for listening to me. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Chair, for the introduction and the opportunity to speak today. I would like to talk about what I think are the main challenges in creating a sustainable textile industry. I will explain that many solutions can be implemented by individual company at the factory level, but some important ones elements require cooperation throughout the textile value chain. The second group entails enormous potential for value creation, but is much more difficult to implement because it requires people, companies, and governments to work together. Here I'm talking about textile and clothing recycling, of course. Now, I remember listening to a panel of distinguished textile manufacturers talking about the current challenges facing the cotton industry during the ITMF annual conference in 2018 in Nairobi. And I asked, when will recycled cotton cannibalize the market for virgin cotton? As an answer, I received a few raised eyebrows and comments about how interesting the question was. 4 years later, many types of recycled fibers are emerging in the market, but I feel the question is still not fully embraced. I don't have the answer to these questions, of course. What I know, however, is that in a perfect world without friction, in a world with advanced recycling technologies, where characteristics of recycled fibers equal that of virgin fibers, and fibers don't deteriorate through time, the needs for virgin fibers would be a function of population growth and wealth increase, and that's it. In this very simplified example, the annual demand for virgin fiber would be that of the newly born and their increased consumption through time. All the rest would be recycled. This theoretical case is only that, of course, a theory. In reality, fibers deteriorate. The characteristics of recycled fibers are not equal to those of virgin fibers, and textile manufacturers mix virgin fibers to recycled fibers in textile production. There is a need for virgin cotton. However, the emergence of recycled fibers creates new forces that modify the markets for fibers, cotton, polyester, and cellulosic alike. It is important to understand what are the current recycling trends to understand what the future demand for virgin cotton will be. Here we have an example with Wood Mackenzie's forecast for mill consumption until 2030. This slide, by the way, and all the following present information and its findings from the ITMF Annual Conference 2022 that took place earlier this year in September in Davos, Switzerland. You can always see a letter or a number in square brackets that leads you to a reference in the last slide of this presentation. So here we see that the consumption of all fibers is expected to grow until 2030, and their share to total consumption is rather stable. Polyester represents about 60% of total consumption, cotton about 20%, and cellulosic fibers about 5%. Textile production is associated with concerns about sustainability. As a biodegradable natural fiber, cotton is nevertheless relatively sustainable already. Consumers even often assimilate it to a responsible choice. In reality, the production of cotton and cotton goods also have their drawbacks. Farming requires synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and waters. Cotton fibers are often blended, dyed, and coated, and combined with buttons, labels, zippers to create some end consumer goods. Moreover, cotton products often end up in landfills. A need to improve sustainability in the cotton value chain exists, and the principles of responsible production and consumption must be adopted from farming to discarding. This slide shows the strategy of some important players in the textile industry presented during our last conference. These are just a few screenshots to illustrate that they all rely on the use of recycled fibers. The forces at play in the background all come from the implementation of a circular economy. The illustration from Ellen MacArthur Foundation was also presented in Davos and comes with a quote. In our current economy, we take materials from the earth, make products from them, and eventually throw them away as waste. The process is linear. In a circular economy, by contrast, we stop waste being produced in the first place. But what does this mean in textile manufacturing concretely? You won't be surprised to hear that the major leverage for sustainable textile manufacturers come from the sustainable guidelines for manufacturing known as reduce, reuse, and recycle. Many cotton and cotton goods producers can implement strategies around these guidelines individually. Reduce can be achieved by increasing the share of renewable energy to reduce fossil fuel combustion. Can also be achieved by increasing overall energy efficiency to reduce power consumption or adopting innovative technologies to reduce waste from production. Reuse and recycle can also be implemented by individual producers to cope with one's waste and unsold inventory. The main difficulty for textile industry is not implementing individual solutions to improve sustainability at the company level. These solutions can be applied by each producer independently, provided access to capital and technology. The real difficulty lies in implementing sustainable solutions that require coordination along the value chain, such as textile and garment recycling. In these cases, the material recycled at one point in the value chain has been produced by the downstream industry. This material must be transformed into a new suitable raw material and shipped back to a given manufacturer prior to be reintroduced into the value chain. This manufacturing loop is associated with three challenges that I call collect, trace, and breakdown. Collecting textile waste requires ways to efficiently gather pre- and post-consumer waste prior to shipping it back to the manufacturer or recycling plant to be processed into new raw material. The major difficulty linked to waste collection is the creation of brand new logistic routes to move the waste up the value chain. The European Commission is currently addressing this challenge as part of the European Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan. The Commission has presented a new strategy which prerequisites the separate collection of textile waste at community level. Euratex, the European Textile and Apparel Confederation, is currently working on the recycling hubs, also known as rehubs, an initiative to help European companies cope with the new guidelines. It focuses on upcycling textile waste and industrially scaling up the collecting, sorting, processing, and recycling of pre- and post-consumer material across Europe. The next challenge is called trace and refers to the ability to know the composition of textile products at any step of the value chain. It is similar to the conventional and well-known concept of traceability, but has a specific meaning in the context of textile recycling. Not only fiber origin and mix must be communicated down the value chain as it is usually meant, for example, 50% of recycled cotton, but also recycling requirements must be communicated up the value chain to ease the recycling loop. This is commonly referred to as the design aspects in circular economy, where the downstream industry accounts for the upstream recycling needs in product design. The breakdown challenge refers to the complexity in fragmented fabrics and yarns into smaller components by chemical or mechanical recycling methods. These two methods entail a multitude of technologies that can be applied with various degrees of success depending on fabric composition. The precondition for sustainable recycling would be a material as pure and consistent as possible. Material mixture can pose challenges on making recycling uneconomical, and technologically unfeasible. The packaging industry has already understood this fact and adopted the mantra design for recycling. Using such designs would equally benefit mechanical and chemical recycling methods, as feedstock needs to meet certain specifications in both cases. Mechanical material preparation technologies used for sorting and cleaning the input feedstock play a major role in the success of textile recycling operations. Fiber characteristics are also modified by the mechanical recycling process. The resulting fiber is often more difficult to process due to heterogeneous types and quality. Altogether, the increase in fiber variety imposes on textile manufacturers to be more versatile in production. The industry is currently adapting to the challenges linked to the emergence of new fibers, with retail working on solutions to spin fibers with higher short fiber contents in ring spinning, for example. We also have Recover, who turns textile waste from post-industrial and pre- and post-consumer origins into high-quality recycled cotton fiber and fiber blends. There is also Sentis Textile, who develops a mechanical recycling and complementary spinning technology to produce 100% pre-consumer recycled fibers. Other approaches entail projects such as Infinite Fibers Circular Alternative to Virgin Materials, KQ ENIC cellulosic filaments, One Again Polymer Recycling Solution for polycotton, or the Hong Kong Research Institute of Textile and Apparel, HK RITA, their green machine, which is capable of recycling blended textiles. Certainly, a truly sustainable textile industry requires manufacturers to collaborate in addition to adopting individual strategies to reduce and reuse. Working in close supplier-producer pair is not possible in such a scenario. Working towards sustainable value chain must bring together everyone involved in transforming raw materials into end consumer goods. New physical and informational networks must emerge to ease the creation of, well, first, logistic routes moving goods and recycled materials up and down the value chain, and second, information flows with fiber mix and origin, as well as recycling requirements. The real difficulty in creating a sustainable textile industry is to understand the consequence of using one's product at each step of the transformation process. Increasingly working in networks along the value chain means vertically integrating information throughout the transformation process to improve collaboration, reduce costs, and avoid waste. That being said, in 2015, only 1% of garments was recycled into garments, and this is probably still the case. Giving already processed cotton a new life is the #1 growth opportunity in the cotton industry in 2022. Cotton growing will always be required to meet the needs of a growing and richer global population. But recycling cotton textiles leads to additional value added for cotton products which have already reached the end of life. Working toward recycling cotton technologies open new opportunities for manufacturers of cotton goods. Achieving this goal keeps a useful fiber out of the landfills or incinerators and gives it a longer useful life. It reduces the need for virgin cotton fibers to what is necessary and helps conserving water and other resources. Overall, it reduces the impact of cotton production and cotton consumption on the environment. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Chair, for the introduction and for allowing me the opportunity to present today. Let me start by briefly introducing the African Cotton Foundation. We were formed in 2018 and are focused on improving the lives of cotton farmers by creating shared value along the entire value chain. Our vision is that of a sustainable, modern, and thriving African cotton sector, where farmers are profitable, cotton growing communities are empowered, human rights are respected, and the environment is conserved. Our mission follows, and I shan't go into it at this stage in the interests of time. But our goal by 2025 is to increase the productivity and incomes for at least 2 million African cotton farmers and their ecosystem partners through stronger supply chains, income diversification, policies, market linkages, financial services, and technical support. It goes without saying that a robust, strong African apparel and textile industry focus is supportive of this. We view an African textile value chain as a world of opportunity. In 2019, the WTO valued the global textile export market at $305 billion and the global apparel export markets at $493 billion. History shows us that the cotton, textile, and apparel industries have, since the first industrial revolution, been core sectors driving growth through industrialization and increased trade. Finally, development of the textile value chain generates employment, particularly the ability to create jobs that provide basic skills to previously unemployed and/or unskilled labor who are frequently women. To see the extent of Africa's textile exports in the context of the WTO figures, which I have again listed here on the right, you can see that Africa in total barely contributes to the world market. And if you take each of the regions individually, although there has been some growth in recent years, it's still very insignificant. So we have a lot of work to do and a lot of places to go. Starting with what we have, these are important foundations on which to build a textile value chain. We have beneficial trade agreements for most African countries, especially sub-Saharan African countries. And these provide preferential access to most of the developed nation world markets. We clearly have an abundance of labor, and we have available farmland without encroaching on natural areas of environmental importance. And this is very important. By improving our productivity at farm level, we have no need to encroach on areas of natural importance. So we conclude that the absence of Africa on the textile and apparel world map is not due to a lack of production surface, climate considerations, or market access. So where are we right now with this value chain? The majority of our cotton fiber is exported, with the benefits associated with any processing accruing outside the continent. Several African countries have enjoyed some success developing export-focused apparel sectors. The job creation benefits of these should not be underestimated or downplayed, but most of the added value remains offshore, largely through the supply of foreign inputs and the vendors being domiciled offshore, therefore any profit going there. Examples of this model can be found in Lesotho, Kenya, Ghana, Madagascar, and Ethiopia, and to a lesser extent in some other countries. Fewer African countries have integrated fiber, textile, apparel, and other made-ups. When we look to these integrated markets, we have to look at Mauritius, Madagascar, and Ethiopia, both early on the journey to integration, South Africa, and Egypt. So with only a few exceptions, the African cotton, textile, and apparel sectors are, for all intents and purposes, three separate industries that fail to grasp the inherent potential contained in a complete, robust value chain. So it would be important at this stage, seeing as we have this dichotomy between the two, to understand the differences between the textile sector and the apparel sector. And in this regard, I focus mostly on what would interest governments and the challenges facing private sector investors. When we look at investment, we will find in the textile sector that the assets are fixed, that big equipment shipped in and not easily moved. Whereas in the apparel sector, we have very easily movable assets. So there is less risk for investors. In the textile sector, we have a high value investment, initial investment, and a slow, but all things being equal, a consistent return on investment. Whereas in the apparel sector, we have a low investment value and a fairly quick return on investment. We have, with textiles, we have a lengthy and complex build when preparing the factories in which we're going to process fiber into yarns or fabrics. Whereas in the apparel sector, it's fairly quick and reasonably basic builds that are required. And in the textile sector, you need considerable working capital because you've got the slow rate of return and a very high value investment to start with. In the apparel sector, it's a low to medium working capital depending on the type of garment factory you're making. So when we look at those in terms of investment, it is easier for African countries to attract apparel sector investors because the risk is lower and the goods can be moved, which I think has to a large extent driven the big gap in our textiles sector across the continent. In terms of job creation, the textile sector does not create a lot of jobs, and it's low by cost when you compare the job created for the dollar invested, while the apparel sector is exactly the opposite. It provides a very high number of jobs for a very low amount of investment. In the textile sector, we use mostly skilled, frequently technical labor, and there is a considerable shortage in most countries in Africa, and therefore we're reliant on expatriate workers. Whereas the apparel sector really comes into its own in its creation of large numbers of jobs which can be created in the unskilled labor pool and training on the job. And this training on the job frequently leads to much more skilled positions and increased wages down the line. Obviously, infrastructure is important in both sectors, but there are some slight differences between both of them. For any textile plant, a consistent 24-hour-a-day, low-cost power has to be provided. Again, you have a slow rate of return, and most textile plants rely on running 24 hours a day, almost 365 days a year. Whereas the apparel sector requires a consistent 8 to 12 hours a day, should be a low-cost power, but it's not quite as sensitive to power costs as the textile industry. Very infrequently, we see any apparel factory working longer than at an absolute maximum of 12 hours a day, unless they're set up on a shift system, which is highly unusual. In terms of waste and effluent treatment, the demands on infrastructure in the textile sector are usually much more complex and fairly expensive because of all the products used in the production of yarns, fabrics, and especially where there is any dyed or printed fabrics. Whereas in the apparel sector, there is a low to medium waste treatment, this is dependent. There is always some requirement. There is refuse that needs to be dealt with. And depending on the factory as to whether it is doing a lot of wet processing, particularly things like indigo, the disposal of water can be quite high, but very seldom is it on the level of those found in the textile sector. When we come to the markets, for the textile sector, there's a low marketing cost. Most yarns and greyish fabrics, at least, are commodity-based. There is a consistent market, and it's an internationally set price. And there's really very consistent products, which are always in demand. So your planning for production is a lot easier. In the markets of apparel, there is a very high marketing and procedural cost pre-order, pre-delivery of the apparel, because it's a complex and fast-changing industry. Fashions change, colors change. Every aspect of a made-up good in the fashion market changes. There is one proviso on this that I would say is that if we are able to receive markets for industrial and workwear products, that can be less so. But it is always highly competitive, and competition is knocking on the door at all times. So that shows basically the key differences between these two important sectors. There's benefits to countries on both. It's easier to get investors in the apparel sector. It's more consistent to get investments into the textile sector. You have the job creation balance between skilled labor and being able to train up unskilled labor, less infrastructure requirement in the apparel sector, but significantly complex and expensive marketing campaigns versus a much easier marketing environment for yarns and greige fabrics. If we are to develop a robust textile and apparel sector, this will have to be driven by government policy. It is the single biggest, most important aspect to building these industries. And there are two real key issues that we need to deal with: a competitive private sector friendly investment landscape and the provision of certain infrastructure which is frequently beyond the means and capability of private sector. I don't believe that any sustainable, economically sustainable textile and apparel sectors will be built without the participation of private sector investors. But of course, there may be a combination of private sector and public funding that is certainly welcomed and is likely to speed up the process. But when we look at competitive private sector friendly investment landscape, here are some of the key issues that really every private sector investor needs. A guaranteed protection of his investments, and this is particularly important in terms of textiles. Repatriation of forex. Nobody wants to necessarily keep all their profit within the country. It is a tricky topic. It means that if you're a foreign investor, you will ultimately need to be able to repatriate your profits. There is some space for governments to negotiate this so that it's a reasonable portion and not just the direct costs of labor of remaining in the country. They will also require access to land and or buildings. Industrial zones are preferable and frequently much quicker to house an investor. This applies more in the apparel sector than to the textile sector, where usually the buildings need to be built to spec. Very important is a clear and efficient private sector to government communication channel. I cannot overemphasize how important this is. Private sector does understand that not all things will go according to plan, especially in developing industries, but their frustration can be relieved by being able to speak to somebody in government who can understand and make every effort to address the problem. And it does very much encourage investors to remain committed. Doing business needs to be easy. It needs to be efficient to register your company and any licensing that the country may have. There needs to be unhindered entry for machinery, equipment, spare parts, and consumables. Again, this is very important because these are not goods available within the country, and they're not competitive if they have huge amounts of duty on them. We have in the past seen problems in some countries where the initial capital equipment can be brought in without any controls on it, but then the bringing in spare parts and consumables becomes an issue or delayed, and that has the potential to completely stop a textile plant from operating. And again, there are a number of oils and waxes and other chemicals and consumables in the textile industries that are not available within the country or in the regions of Africa. And work visas or residence permits for essential expatriate staff are an absolute requirement. If a private investor is investing a lot of money, he does want to have a number of trusted staff to whom he can delegate responsibility of overseeing it. And in the textile industry, that would be a higher proportion against local staff because it's usually technical people that you need. It is also very important for governments to allocate textiles and apparels as a key industry and offer them support that includes protection from non-competitive or dumped imports and the abuse of used clothing protocols. Promotion of local regional production is imperative. We should not be importing our beautiful African designs and fabrics from Asia. Labor laws need to be aligned with at least ILO conventions, and governments play an important role in facilitating wage structures to balance fairness and competitiveness, and also in ensuring that the labor laws of the country are in line with both ILO and any market considerations. It is also very important for governments to lobby for longevity on preferential trade agreements, particularly AGOA. AGOA will expire in 2025, and unless there is a strong lobby from the African ambassadors in Washington and from as many other interested parties, we do run the risk of that expiring, and it has proved to be particularly useful in developing the apparel sector in several countries, as we saw earlier. Beyond policy, government also needs to address infrastructure. And there are a few key points here. The first is that there must be time-sensitive and consistently reliable access to ports, be that seaports or airports, but goods coming in and goods going out must be able to move freely and quickly between getting off the ship or the aeroplane and back and to the factory and back again. There is not time in current value chain lead times for any wasted time or delays on this. The second two things that are definitely required are consistent low-cost energy supplier. And here there is a big opportunity. This does not need to rely entirely on government policy. Many private sector investors and the development community are keen to partner to develop green energies. And really that impacts the entire economy of the country. And it is a similar situation with the development of infrastructure and robust legislation that ensures the safe disposal, preferably the reuse, of all waste and effluent that's created by these industries. So to summarize that, an African sustainable textile value chain would in fact deliver on all our SDG commitments. This goes a long way to creating jobs, creating industrialization, relieving poverty, and it can be done in an environmentally sensitive way that mitigates any climate impacts in the future. Thank you for listening, and a special thanks to the ICAC team for your organization.
Thank you very much. All the presentations were outstanding, and we are really thankful that you spared your valuable time for us. The presentations cover nearly all the important topics, and next year we will have focus sessions. I'm very thankful to our speakers, Cotton and Textile Man of India, Mr. Suresh Kotak, Mr. Alkoham Karadov, Ms. Natalia Asaiva, Dr. Tanveer Hussain, Dr. Lilac Osenjo, Dr. Oliver, and Ms. Belinda. There are some notable colleagues such as Mr. Christian Chandler, DGITMF, Ms. Roop Rashid, Textile Commissioner India, Mrs. Sokhzada from Uzbekistan, Professor Fredrich, Mr. Townsend, Mr. Jane Paul Gollett, and Peter Wakefield. We are very thankful that you have attended this session. We are also thankful to our delegates for attending this first dedicated textile session. Kai, we are a little behind the schedule at the moment, and do we have time for questions? What do you suggest?
Well, I think we can allow 5 minutes to see if there are any very important questions. Otherwise, we do need to get onto the World Cafe. As you said, we're quite well way behind.
Yes, we are 40 minutes, dear audience, do we have any questions? Unfortunately, our interpreters can't read the chat, so you have to raise your hand, and our speakers are available to answer your questions. So, yes, we have a question. Yeah, Mr. Ram, please go ahead.
First, let me thank the ICAC for organizing this very timely topic. I'm Professor Ram Kumar at Texas Tech, and I'm very much keen in putting the sustainability. Okay, this is the one thing probably you would have done. I don't think if Suresh ji is still there. Sustainability comes with the cost. For 20 years, Kranti knows, we at Texas Tech have been pushing cotton into non-apparel applications, and the cost issue always comes. So would there be either for Mr. Usman or somebody to say how we would overcome the barrier of cost? Because if you have to increase the consumption and things like that in non-traditional sectors, cost plays a part. So are there, because that is exactly what Kotak ji tells me, demand enhancement, sure. But demand enhancement should also have a balance of the cost. As ICAC or any of the panelists have any thoughts on this, unless we are able to sell to the customer, okay, you get all these benefits, but it has its cost, but over the period it will work out. But what would be the immediate thing from a global forum like ICAC can do about this? That's an important thing.
Suresh Saab, please, if you can reply.
Suresh, you need to unmute. Suresh, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Usman and Kai. The question is valid. You see, the very fact that cotton is being beaten against man-made fiber on cost is a point which very correctly the questioner has brought about. There are a number of ways on which the thinking is already on in this. The number one thinking is as I said, the productivity. Now today, good cotton countries have productivity of 1500 kg, which brings down the cost. The second aspect is the genomics. The genomics are also working on different aspects of cost with the markers and all that. And some experiments have been done, and a number of pursuits in this matter is being done. The third thing is the biggest cost is the application of pesticides. So if we are able to work out on organic cotton very well with a better yield in organic cotton, there are ways in which we can do it very successfully. As a matter of fact, I have some statistics on the organic cotton. What is the potential of science? The potential of science and technology only can work in favor of cost reduction. In South India, SIMA CBRA has worked out a quality which has length of 27 and which has the tensile strength of 50. So if the work is done on this thing, I think nothing is impossible. Only the technology will help, and good practices can definitely help. I am optimistic.
Thank you very much, Professor Ram. I will little add here that I and Kai, we have decided that in our PSAC, which is Private Sector Advisory Council, we will be talking on these issues openly over there, because you're absolutely right. Sustainability has a cost, and we have to share among ourselves. We have another question from Mr. Hama from Nigeria. Floor is yours, sir, please. Mr. Hama, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Kanwan, and the ICAC body for organizing this 80th session of ICAC. My concern about African products is counterfeiting and smuggling of substandard goods into our country. That is making the manufacturing concern close down because of cheaper goods coming in and selling and stealing our designs and dumping on our borders and taking over our markets to the extent that manufacturers have no access to the local market. And due to high cost of production, they cannot also export due to price issues. So they're not able to balance both export and domestic products. So most of them are going into extinct now, they're closing down and losing a huge number of employment. What do you think? Why do you think ICAC can do for us to save the situation, and how our manufacturers can benefit from our products? I am happy that Ms. Linda Edmonds presented a paper along that line. I hope she'll be able to expand on this issue of smuggling, counterfeiting, and substandard goods by dumping into Nigeria.
Very pertinent question, Mr. Hama. I'll give floor to Belinda. Belinda, if you'd like to reply, please.
Thank you. And excuse me without having video on. And you can hear me, just shake your head. I think the issue of used clothing is certainly something where the international trade bodies like ICAC, particularly organizations like WTO, should have a good look at. Unfortunately, the United States previously indicated that if we didn't allow used clothing from the US into African countries, they would remove the AGOA eligibility. Perhaps that was a decision in haste and without enough consideration for the impacts, both environmental and economic. But more importantly, there is a role for secondhand clothing or used clothing where it is for charitable purposes or it serves some benefit, but unfortunately, under its derogation, it's open to a lot of abuse. And I do think that the US should have a look at that, as well as the WTO, because it is becoming, above all, a very big environmental challenge across the world right now. In terms of counterfeiting, I think there is robust legislation all around the world, and it's up to individual countries to protect their own goods, and especially West Africa, but also East Africa. There are a number of very clearly defined designs and methodologies which should be protected in the same way that we protect champagne and port and things like that. So, but I would suggest that that's something that needs to be done at a political level, and there has to be a political will. And finally, I would say that the African Union needs to support all of the countries so that there's an Africa-wide
Yes.
role. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. It's very comprehensive. And I just like to share my experience with Belinda. When I talk to Belinda, I come to know that she knows everything about Africa. She's very good in policy making, and she understands business very well. So I think we have to synergize our and sit together and discuss all those issues to move forward. Dear audience, do you have any more questions?
I think that's I think that's it, Osman.
Yes.
So, I'm going to end this session now and thank all our presenters. If you do have other questions, please feed them to ICAC, and we'll try and get back to you with some answers. And I'm going to immediately hand over to Mr. Mike McHugh, who's the ICAC Director of Communications, who's going to introduce the last session of the day, which is the World Cafe. And as you know, this is an extremely popular session. I'm not going to say any more about it. I'm going to leave that all to him. So Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. Obviously, I am here live today, but I do not trust computers not to crash or the internet not to go down right when I need them the most. So to be on the safe side, I recorded my introduction. We have a lot to get through already behind, so let's not waste any time on me. Let's roll the video. Might be a little bit weird at the beginning because I think I'm about to thank myself for introducing myself, but let's get started. Okay, thank you, and hello to all my friends and colleagues from around the world. Welcome to the 2022 ICAC World Cafe, where today we will be discussing the evolving global textile supply chain. We've put together, I don't know, 25 or 30 of the top minds on the planet regarding this topic to get the conversation started. But first, let me explain how World Cafe works. We began doing this about 10 years ago. And the idea was we wanted to break the format of person on stage talking to people in the audience, or now in the age of COVID, person on screen talking to participants watching a video. We wanted something where actually the audience interacted with other audience members and then told us what they came up with and what their ideas and solutions are. So we wanted something more dynamic, more about the audience and less about somebody on screen or stage dictating to everybody else. We had 5 discussions on the evolving global textile supply chain. They were done in different parts of the world in different languages to ensure geographic and cultural diversity. And it takes an awful lot of work to do this. Every one of these individuals had to identify and schedule a handful of other experts, then conduct an hour or 2 long session, then review it and make a 5 or 10 minute video summarizing everything they did. So it's an awful, awful lot of work. We are incredibly indebted to all 5 of these individuals. But now we're going to play a video compilation of those leaders presenting the highlights from their group discussions that addressed a set of common questions. And when we're done with the video, we will open up to a live Q&A with you, the audience. The table leaders are here in attendance, so you'll be able to ask them questions based on the feedback they're about to give us. We've summed a lot of brain power for this very important conversation for our industry. So the less you see of me on the screen, the better. And with that having been said, let's roll a video.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I would like to thank ICAC for the invitation to be here taking part of the 2022 World Cafe. And I would like to quickly share our group's views. There we go. First of all, this is our group. So we had the Brazilian group formed by Júlio Busato, president of Abrapa, Alexandre Schenkel, Abrapa's vice president, Fábio Carneiro, our sustainability head, and myself, Marcelo Duarte, the director of international relations at Abrapa, the Brazilian Cotton Growers Association. Let's go to the first question. So what are the emerging trends in the global supply chain, including e-commerce? Well, definitely circularity goes on top, traceability, slower fashion, regulation, geographical diversification of suppliers, and geopolitics. Of course, now we still have recession as a hot topic as well. How we can improve sustainability? Well, first of all, I think we need to have clear indicators and methodology to measure. I think this is really a point of improvement for the entire supply chain. What to measure, how to measure. For example, carbon footprint from farm to fashion, and for polyester is also from petrol well to fashion. So are we going to be measured by the same standards, all the fibers? Use more biodegradable products as another way of being more sustainable from earth to earth. I think cotton is naturally more circular by nature, so that's an advantage that our group brought here as well. And production research, genetics to improve quality and improve yield around the world and use less water. As the markets are being taken over by big retailers, so in developed countries, what's the future of small and medium enterprises? Well, I think retailer concentration, that's probably is increasing, and increasing supply chain power is a trend in several industries, so it's not only in the textile sector. We understand that smaller community and value-added niche outlets will be the way for smaller enterprises. The fourth question is regarding traceability and how it can be pursued. Well, really, we need more research into new technologies, affordable technologies, capable of tracing at reasonable prices. So we're seeing a lot of discussion. We're seeing a lot of technology routes out there, and definitely we need to find solutions that will be making it feasible, whether it's forensics, whether it's DNA marking, whether it's physical traceability and segregation, up from the cotton producer to the spinner. I think it's quite straightforward, but when it gets to the spinner downwards, it becomes very challenging. Number 5, all this fatigue is a real concern, especially with the need to meet not only domestic legislative requirements, but also the compliance requirements of global brands. How do we simplify? Well, one important point in our view is to try to look at different standards out there and try to come up with a list of checklist items that are common. So that's an example that that we have to bring here is what happened with BCI and Abrapa. So Abrapa had its own standards and BCI had their own. So farmers were being audited twice. So BCI and Abrapa worked together, made a benchmarking study in order to align the certification standards, and now farmers only get audited once. So we put together a single checklist, a single standard that's good for both certifications. So that's something that could be done in a more larger term. Another way is to use new technology that's out there already to collect and process data, IoT, big data, sensors, precision ag, you name it. So there are a number of digital technologies out there that can be definitely used, and that's going to reduce the amount of work that needs to be put together to collect information if we use the data that's out there. Finally, going forward, and what role do you see ICAC playing in the global textile industry? Well, definitely support with new legislation, and that's very important point. We understand. Also, we understand that support unifying sustainability standards and methodologies to measure sustainability, how we're going to be measured and what is going to be measured. And finally, continue, of course, advocating for cotton as the best and most sustainable fiber. That's it. Thank you very much.
I'm Sedef from Orta. I am responsible from sales, marketing, R&D, sustainability, product development, and operations.
I'm Shannon Mercer. I'm the CEO of Fibre Trace, calling from Australia, from a place called the Gold Coast.
Thank you, Shannon. Ali.
I'm Ali Abdullah. I'm a managing director at Diamond Denim. We're part of the Sapphire Group. I'm calling from Lahore, Pakistan.
I started the Kingpins show. I work in the Transformers Foundation and run the textile division for Material Exchange.
Thank you, everybody, for the introduction. So let's start from the first question. And so the first question says, what are the emerging trends in the global textile supply chain, including e-commerce? I think I want to go first to Sedef on this question.
Well, 3 trends today I would like to share with you that we see as important going forward is the word impact and science-based data that we see nowadays near sustainability. I think it's promising. And circularity is the second one, and biodesign is the third trend that I would like to speak. I'm really happy to see that people are right now starting to talk about numbers and action when sustainability comes out. Generating validated data and communicating these data, this science-based data to consumers is the key going forward, and we value that a lot as a company.
And so on the second question, so how can we improve sustainability in the textile value chain?
I think the absolute key to improve sustainability is to really improve traceability and transparency. I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. Whatever we do, whatever steps we take, if they're not traceable, they're not transparent, and they can't be followed back and really can't be implemented. So it sort of comes down to creating methods to making sure that we're able to trace them back to trace the fiber back to its origin, for example.
I can also continue because it's again related with the first question to us. We are defining something called a regenerative mindset, and that mindset includes using longer longevity of the fabrics and eventually the jeans or like garments that is produced like using our fabrics. So that's the most important sustainable step, like using your jeans longer.
You know, we look at consumers around what's driving them, right? Like we look at it and say, well, what are the key drivers behind any consumer decisions around purchase? And when we look at the first one, it's around, you know, is the product of quality? Is it fit for purpose? And then we say, you know, particularly around food, is it safe? And I think what's happening is that word safe's now morphing into that safety word now means, is it transparent? Is it traceable? You know, is it free from child labor? You know, all these other components now are coming into the mindset of a consumer when they purchase. And this is what's driving us as an industry to move it.
Moving on to the third question, which is super interesting. It reads as the markets are being taken over by big retailers in the developed countries, what is the future of small and medium enterprises or SMEs in textile value chain, especially in the export markets?
From, you know, when we talk about traceability and what we're doing, the first people that adopted traceability and the first people that adopt transparency are the small to medium businesses. You know, and it's those outliers and it's those drivers that impact change. They impact change on, you know, on innovation. They impact change on design. They impact change on a lot of things. I think they're a critical component and always will be a critical component in terms of the fashion industry.
Coming with the fourth question, actually, to you, Shannon, traceability that Ali mentioned and all of us mentioned is an increasingly important factor. But the textile value chain is long and complex, we all know. And so how it can be simplified and made less expensive, actually?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. I think, Andrew just touched on it a little bit a minute ago about working together, right? And what's really, really important in this sector is because there's a lot of solutions out there, and there will never be just one solution that wins, right? There'll be multiple solutions that play across multiple things, and that's okay. But what we need to do as an industry is define what traceability is, and we need to define what transparency is, because that hasn't actually been defined yet, right? We've got solutions out there like physical traceability, we've got digital traceability, we've got components of those, yet there's no real answer on what actual true traceability means. So I think, how do you make it easy to adopt, and how do you actually be able to go from good just mapping, digital, better, best physical tracing on those fibers is the way you sort of scale across the industry.
I think purely, I actually agree with a lot of what Shannon's saying. I think it basically comes down to standardizing. We just need to somehow come together and agree on a standardized method to trace it back. And if it's not one method, it can be 2 or 3. It just can't be the number that we have today.
Our industry has so many words that mean different things to different people. We have different priorities, and we have greenwashing. So the combination of all those things makes it really difficult to have an industry movement, but the individual companies are doing lots of good things.
You're the best person to give me the leeway to another question, which is the 5th one that we have here, which is audit fatigue. And these multiple people doing different things with different aims and asking for different questions. So audit fatigue is a real concern, especially with the need to meet not only domestic legislative requirements, but also the compliance requirements of global brands, which may be different. So how can we simplify the audit?
We got requests for another new system with a new platform with similar questions, with additional fees and audits. And the system is very, very labor intensive and costly for us right now. So the word or the phrase audit fatigue is very well put. And at the very end, what we're talking about is, what we're doing is, okay, there's an audit. And for example, they are giving numbers or grades to you. And they are saying that you are better, best, or some numbers that they're sharing with you. And this is a good scale going forward for companies to improve themselves. But since every system is different from another, it's also difficult for the whole system to evolve. Because of greenwashing, I understand. I really understand. I am really very fed up with greenwashing statements. So I really understand the need for additional questions. But this really puts a lot of effort on us that we need to create additional systems to be able to respond the questions.
So we're coming to the end of this World Cafe roundtable. So going forward, what role do you see that ICAC can play in the global textile industry? And what would you like to see them do better to support cotton consuming countries?
Really simple. They should help create or work with people that will create a tool to help farmers over the next 10 years. It's kind of like John Kennedy said, we're going to go to the moon. They should create a date, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. And over that period of time, commit to every farmer calculating and using systems he can advise their environmental impact. Obviously, no matter how educated the farmer is, he knows exactly how much he got for his crop. He knows how much it cost him. And it doesn't matter if he reads it right. He knows that in his head. And that information has to go out of his head into our systems. And I think that is the goal that I would do if I was them and ask them.
Good morning. This is our presentation during the 80th ICAC Plenary Meeting. I would like to share with you the results of the discussion group in Argentina. The members of the group are representatives of the Asociación para la Promoción de la Producción de Algodón APA, Asociación Argentina de Productores Algodonero AAPA, the textile sector by the company Avellaneda, the Secretariat of Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery of Argentina, and the National Technology Institute. Which are the emerging trends in the global textile supply chain, including e-commerce? For our team, we believe there are opportunities in the textile chain associated to specialized consumption that would consider circular economy, the use of natural fibers and blends, as well as awareness of the environment and social sustainability. E-commerce, in turn, is occupying more space in the post-pandemic time. Regarding question number 2, how can we improve sustainability in the textile value chain? We believe that the technological development that took place in recent years, improving the efficiency of textile processes, contributes to the improvement of the sustainability of the value chain. The availability of more information and more clarity or transparency inside the chain seems to be improving the productive and social and environmental awareness. Question number 3. As the markets are being taken over by big retailers in the developed countries, what is the future of small and medium enterprises in the textiles value chain, especially in export markets? We believe that there is the possibility to identify marketing niches and demand niches that provide opportunities to all kinds of companies, including the small and medium-sized businesses. It is clear that governments play an essential role accompanying the public policies. Currently, there are many companies that are expanding at regional and South American level. As to question number 4, traceability is an increasingly important factor, but the textiles value chain is long and complex. How can it be simplified and made less expensive? We believe that traceability is a very important tool. However, industrial phase is generally easier to be implemented given the processes involved. We have to focus on simplifying the primary production process that seems to be more complex, particularly when the origin or source of cotton is in other countries, those that import fiber for processing. As to question number 5, audit fatigue is a real concern, especially with the need to meet not only domestic legislative requirements, but also the compliance of requirements of global brands. How can we simplify the audits? We believe in our team that audits at industrial level are easier to implement because these are standardized technical processes that follow a protocol. The challenge is at the level of primary production, the seeds, the whole production, all the way to the crop phase or harvest of the plant. Then, regarding the 6, going forward, what role do you think the CCIA play in the global textiles industry? What would you like us to do better support common consuming countries? To conclude, we believe that the role to be played by CCIA would be accompanying processes of technical information availability, constant recommendation and contribution to public policy making in cotton producing and consumer countries. We are open to any questions you might have, and thank you very much.
According to your first question, I would like to reply on that. This is a very difficult question as the current scenario is very unpredictable, especially after COVID-19. I and my fellows have discussed the topic at length, and after much deliberation, we are of the opinion that the situation is very dynamic and economic number on world demand and supply has been changing on weekly basis, including the world GDP and inflation. We are in between recession period and we do not know how long it would continue. However, within the unpredictability, we are certain that there would be a cut for competition among the countries and also exporters to keep their share. The winner would be one where countries and exporters would work together to be more competitive compared to other countries and exporters. And for this reason, we expect that governments would provide maximum facilitation and exporters would take the wise decision. For example, prices are volatile. Therefore, inventory management would play a significant role alongside timely buying of raw materials. Freight was an issue, but it's easing down. However, this issue is taken over by availability of cotton as a due to various reasons such as taxes, costs, floods in Pakistan, virus in India, cotton crop would be short. Therefore, arrangement would be required to make the cotton available and would be an important task for the governments and also for the exporters on competitive prices. We are also of the opinion that e-commerce sales will be dropped to will remain high compared to past, but low as what we had during COVID. Chinese zero COVID policy would hurt the buyer. Therefore, we expect that buying from China would be diversified to other reliable suppliers. That's the output from my association. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sustainability cannot be addressed just by the efforts of the manufacturers and exporters, especially small and medium enterprises. Textiles start from fiber. Therefore, sustainability fiber is a must. High cost of natural fibers would always trend to encourage synthetic, and that won't serve our purpose for improving sustainability. We also need to revise our energy mix, and we should reduce energy source from fossil fuel, and that again can't be carried out alone by the exporters. We need support of governments and importantly from buying houses and retailers. Global textile industry is utilizing more than 200 trillion liters of water per annum that need to be reduced. And that can only be improved by using the latest technology. Most of my members have shifted to new technologies, but we require continuous upgradation, which require frequent investments. And for this purpose, there should be a separate fund for green projects on a very low interest rates. The most efficient way to improve sustainability across the value chain would be through partnership among buyers and suppliers. We need long-term buying commitment so that manufacturers can invest in new green technologies. Importantly, buyers should share the cost. There are many other out-of-the-box ways to improve sustainability, and for the purpose, surely we will come back to ICAC with our proposal so that they can pursue with the international community. Thank you.
Today's my topic is to discuss is that social compliance are requirements. If globally different regions have a different requirement, because If we have to export our goods to UK, then we have requirement of SADC. If we have to go to Europe, rest of Europe, they have required DCSI. If we have to go to USA, then requirement will be G. Actually, the need of time is that we have to inform these requirements. If we have to pay SADC and then DCSI, and if we have to go to USA, then different chain stores have different requirements. But the tender are same. DCSI requirements, SADC requirements, and chain stores, USA chain store requirements are same. But we don't avoid orders. But the problem is that in orders, we have to pay more and more money. For SMEs, that's not possible to pay more monies to different order companies. If we have a mistake, so just like small clerical mistakes, then we have to go to reorder. Reorder means we have to pay the fees again and again. And on the other hand, so our governments also have some labor departments, social security departments, DOPI departments. They have also audited our factories at different times, and even their audit is online. The checking body is in head office, and the audit team is in our premises, and they have to online all these things to send their head office. There is no cushion to avoid it. We don't want to ask that you have to skip the orders, but uniform orders, one single uniform order for social compliance is completely acceptable for whole world. Thank you so much.
As the markets are being taken over by big retailers in the developed countries, what is the future of small and medium enterprises in the textiles value chain, especially in export markets? This question is very important, as we have been noticing it since long that SMEs are losing business to big players. The international business has been shifted towards mass production. Therefore, it is a support of big manufacturing companies. My experience is the same, and I am taking it as a threat that an export market is now in hands of big retailers and brands. Therefore, they prefer integrated companies, and slowly the SMEs are becoming uncompetitive. SMEs are now mostly limited to niche market and niche product. There is a need that countries make policies which are more in favor of the small and medium enterprises than SMEs. The change in policies is required not only from the manufacturing countries, exporting countries, but also from the importing countries as well. The biggest hurdle in growth of SME in developing countries is access to finance, expensive compliance requirements by importing companies, which most of the time is duplication, taxation, and risk management. My point is, the governments in countries like us should be more SME-centric. They should make SME policy to provide firstly access to short and long-term financing and at a competitive rates. Further, we need facilitation in import of raw materials followed by simple taxation system. Such facilitation should make us competitive and encourage new entrepreneurship. And I also think that this will help creating employment in other developing countries, especially for women. Otherwise, the business would be taken over by the big companies. Moreover, this is very important topic, and we need more discussion on this topic, not only with the exporting and importing countries, but also with the sourcing companies as well. Thank you.
Sustainability and traceability are interconnected and important topics for the entire world. Now, every organization is claiming for sustainable sourcing and production. However, traceability is a big question mark, that is number which everyone claiming and exactly the same or just numbers game. There is no easy solution and no budget method to verify claims and make information traceable.
in the portal, especially for natural fiber based on importantly cotton, let alone our country. And these countries from outside is too small to traceable become more and more complex. It will not make the natural fiber traceable. It would be encouraged to use man-made fiber by the brand and retailers. Therefore, we need to new solutions. Otherwise, currently textile industry is consuming more than 100 million tons of fiber per annum, and out of which natural fibers are approximately 30%, and remaining are man-made fibers, which are mostly diversifications and fossil fuels. Increasing our consumption and man-made fiber, we may more traceable but less sustainable. This is why I said that topics of sustainability and traceability are interconnected. We are glad to know that ICAC has been working to provide leadership in sustainability and traceability. I have discussed with ICAC on the topics and their idea of sustainability index and traceability system would play an important role for textile value chain, and it would be coming from non-commercial angles. As ICAC is an intergovernmental organization, not a commercial company, to use their initiative to make money, and I'm sure ICAC would address this issue with more transparency, honesty, and accountability. Thank you.
So this is an important question, and we had a discussion among our members on the topic. Collectively, what we believe, this is the right step for the International Cotton Advisory Committee to initiate textile among their ranks, as cotton is just a fraction of entire textile trade. However, it is entirely a different business compared to cotton. We, as a small and medium business entrepreneurs, have following suggestions for ICAC being an intergovernmental organization. Now I would like to give it point-wise. First, ICAC can help the small and medium entrepreneurs to find new buyers and suppliers so that we can become the part of global value chain, and we strongly recommended that this should be your major initiative. And I assure you that being the largest SME Exporters Association, 100% of our members would join you on any such effort. Because as you are aware of the fact that SME having limited resources, so ICAC must do something on that. Secondly, ICAC should arrange business-to-business delegation. This will build our relationships, and importantly, it would be help us to find new partners to increase our trade. This will also helpful in matchmaking, joint ventures, and investments. We would like to have B2B delegation in sourcing countries and also in major textile importing countries. I assure you that our members would be very much interested to be part of B2B delegations. Further, we recommended that ICAC should make a good criteria for that only serious business person can only part of the B2B delegations. Furthermore, exhibitions and fashion shows should be also held to promote trade among the member countries. Thirdly, access to the information, especially of research, is very important. Industry academia linkages are very weak in our country specifically, and we need to strengthen it. We need information on new technologies, processes, chemicals, technical, textile products, and importantly, development carried out on new fibers. In fact, we would suggest that this should also be your prime focus. Lastly, we need support in carrying out the compliance audit requirement by the international bodies. ICAC should think out of the box approach to help us in achieving multiple audits by our international buyers, which are mostly duplication, and we are paying very high price for that. Thank you very much.
Your views, how can we improve sustainability in the textile supply chain? First, how do we actually define sustainability and how do we improve that?
MSME segment, which is a very large segment, especially in India, will only go for sustainability when the government really takes it through. And of course, we need to balance the cost benefit analysis because we are a very price elastic country, consumers. We have seen it in shifted from cotton to blends or polyester over the last 1.5 years. And of course, the shift is getting more and more strong. As Lalitji said, cotton's percentage is going to get less and less. And this current last year hike is definitely going to take cotton more on a, put it on a back pedestal. And still, of course, we'll still have people preferring cotton. Of course, it'll become a more elitist product and polyester and blends will go on. So I think so we need to, the government needs to take it through. Buyer has its limitations. It will be driven by how the consumer acts and reacts. And of course, it's going to be very location specific. Developed countries will be much faster, but the underdeveloped or developing countries, from a buyer point of view, is going to be very, very slow. So, sir, I'm just
true. From good right now to better, that is the way out, and that is the suggestion Sanjay Jain, MD, TT Limited, has made. He is the past president of Citi, Litra, and TSC, a very renowned thought leader in textiles. And here I invite the next speaker, Dr. Vinay Kumar Chaudhary, Chairman, Control Union. Dr. Vinay ji, traceability is an increasingly important factor, but the textile value chain is long and complex. How can it be simplified and made less expensive? Nobody is as experienced as you are in the sustainability and the organic cotton and textile front. Please help us address this issue.
Namaskar. Good afternoon, everybody. So it's a very good discussion topic nowadays. So I heard that sustainability is growing up, but you know, I have one comment on the sustainability that what India is going to face the challenge of overcommitment. So sustainability, as all the participants told, that there are different definitions, but as per the world definition which we are going towards, the climate change or impact assessment, which is the next future. And these two words is a buzzword. And India itself has a lot of sustainability. So I feel that sustainability should be talked about in real sense. So when you talk about overcommitting sustainability, then the true price is not given for the work to be done, then there is a fraud in the system which get exposed. So India should not overcommit on sustainability, because the true price is not given for the what sustainable work is given. So that is one of the point I want to add.
Very important point. I do agree with you.
And regarding traceability, it's a very common buzzword. I can say that fascinating word, farm to fashion, waste to wealth, lot of traceability, you know, more than 100 traceability, beautiful software has come. But India should be prepared to talk about sustainability, because traceability comes with integrity now. So if traceability is coming, we can talk about various type of traceability. One is blockchain, which is coming on IT platform, that you know you give your traceability with information. So India was known from the beginning to write everything from our old days, to write everything on paper, and we were known for that. And that traceability has much integrity into place.
Now, just one question to all of you, anyone or all of you can address this, that audit fatigue is a real concern. Now, we have been faced with audits all around us, having started an industry from day one. But now this compliances and audits, they not only come for organic and sustainably, sourcing companies, but also for normal companies, because this child labor and other thing compliances are not only related to sustainable sourcing of fibers or materials. So how do we address this issue?
What you raised is multiple audits.
Yes.
So multiplicity is the real fatigue causing factor.
Right.
So there is a need for the people acquiring this to sit together and see how much they can synchronize or make it common. Like literally every brand wants its own audit. They cover the same points, but they don't accept each other's
certification, so to say.
Right.
So now, Suresh bhai, coming to you, and the last question, all of you can have a 1 line or 2 line say on it. Going forward, what role do you see the ICAC playing in the global textile industry, the International Cotton Advisory Committee? Can they do anything better than they're doing right now to support the cotton consuming or cotton producing countries?
I would like to comment, before I comment on that,
yes,
I would like to comment on the previous speaker. I admire Mr. Sanjay Jain, that what he tells about fatigue, audit fatigue. Even ITMF has also thought in the similar direction now. I remember that a common certificate is the solution. So we must push this idea of common certificate by combining various duplicated or unnecessary or repetitive certification. Necessary and unnecessary should be earmarked. So this is the appreciation of this audit fatigue, a correct suggestion. And then what Mr. Silverite said is also right, that we have to understand the innate position of our own farmers and our own industry, which is 80% MSME. So whatever we do, we have to think in terms of our context. So that's why I agree that any system we evolve has also to be India specific, because India is slightly somewhat different ethos, a somewhat different scenario than other countries. Now coming to the ICAC role, I personally feel that ICAC was started as a congregation of nations years back, and now they are working on limited objectives. The addition to their objective was made by the addition of Private Sector Advisory Committee. Now, Private Sector Advisory Committee has been giving various suggestions, and out of that suggestion, this CAFE meeting is being held. That CAFE meeting, the present meeting, is an invitation to collect the different views which are floating in various countries and make it commonly available. So ICAC has definitely been aware that they must expand their role much more than giving mere statistics or giving stock to use ratio. So the ambit of ICAC needs to be revised so that now traceability, I agree with Sanjay ji that what is the necessity of traceability? Now traceability necessity stems out of the consumerism which is taking shape in the world. The consumers vie with each other to find out some distinction of some kind, that see what I am giving is highly climate friendly, highly sustainable. So sustainable word is survival, but it has become a good word, making it little confused and including so many things. So we have to simplify the things so that the progress can be made. And that's where I agree that we have to simplify as well, according to Mr. Jain said. But the raison d'etre is the consumerism for tracing. Now, finally, ICAC today has excellent papers on technology. Now, the technology papers of ICAC remain more on the academics, and it is not being used. I personally feel that. Am I audible?
Suresh bhai, you are audible.
You are audible, sir.
Absolutely audible.
So what we should do is, we should expand the role of technology adoption so that the cotton productivity and quality of the cotton improves, so as to have substitute to the man-made fiber.
Today's meeting that can on this platform we invite through the tag, the Textile Advisory Group. Can we have send an invitation to ICAC? Can they do something? What they have been remarkably doing in African countries, can they do that in India? Suresh bhai, Dr. Keshav Kranti just shared during the city conference therefore yesterday in India about the founder country in ICAC.
We shall try.
In the founder country, we are still facing the situation of yield challenge and a production challenge right now. Can we have something on the tag platform for ICAC?
I think we have been given an opportunity to make ICAC to also to help us. I think definitely we will do that. And of course, the global best practices, whatever we are getting, they can publish, like, ITMF, they are coming out with contamination survey. Same way, probably ICAC, even on quality front, they can come out with some survey reports on fiber quality, productivity, kind of a thing, some more technical details that will help each country to benchmark and improve themselves. Now, other than contamination or sea coats or stickiness, we don't have any other fiber parameters globally. We don't have. And even when we talk about the fiber quality parameters, we go by only what the mills are saying. And ICAC being a central organization, probably they can come out with some quality report also by getting the data from the different countries, so that it will help others also to progress well. So this is one more thing.
Dr. Salviraju, they do have a lot of data. They have data of every country. What we need to do is sync that with what can be, what can help India do better. And I think tag platform, once it comes, because it's a tag platform also has the two ministries in place. And then, dissipating that to city CDRA or city or the local association here in India would be really remarkable. Let them choose a location and then we will choose the medium.
By and large, we appreciate the excellent services provided by ICAC, though there is some more thing we may expect, but really the data, the report, have been very highly reliable and helping the whole industry across the world to grow. So our compliments from Indian textile industry to ICAC, and we highly appreciate the services provided by ICAC.
Mike, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still seeing play again, go to library, and there we go. Okay. Thank you very much. Can I ask the Secretariat to very briefly show, just for a couple of seconds, the list of participants from the discussion from India? That went by very, very quickly on the screen. And as I mentioned before, this takes an awful lot of work, and all the participants deserve our thanks and recognition. So we can start. If people have questions, please raise your hand. If you put your question in the chat box, our interpreters can't see it and we might miss it. So if we have questions, again, please raise your hand. I'll identify you and you can take the floor. Anyone? Again, raise your hand so we can see you if you have a question. You can take the image down now, I think. Thank you for that. Fine, I will ask the first question, and this is for Bilal from Pakistan. What governments and international agencies to offer what do governments and international agencies have to offer to small and medium enterprises to boost their business and helping them in developing economy? How do they grow?
Thank you very much, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's some interference, but it's better now. Please continue.
Thank you. It's a very important question which you have asked. On behalf of my 20 years experience, run SME export and also representing the SME sector of Pakistan, I would like to have a decision here for your mind consideration. Number one, as you aware of the fact that in a country, developing country like Pakistan, we having a very big issue of cost of doing business, which always becomes get very high, specifically on electricity and gas, which are the backbone of our industry. And as you know, that SME sector is like a failure for the large scale manufacturers. So if we can't reduce our cost of doing business, how we can provide the raw material to the large scale manufacturers. So this is the area where ICAC must do something and intervene. And secondly, people loan are very necessary for SME sector. Specifically in our country, unfortunately, 90% of SME sector scheme, the beneficiary is large scale manufacturers, and 90% goes to the large scale manufacturers. The government, what the government tries to give to the SME. So we are not beneficiary of those cheaper loans which should come to the SME sector. So that should be ensured by the government and through your organization that the cheaper loans must reach to the SME sector for their progress. And another point is that participation in international exhibition and conferences is very important, like your conference. Here, the best idea is that physically participation is very necessary. So you should make sure that next time there must be a delegation from Pakistan as well, from SME sector, to present their problems internationally to you in USA. And as you know that SME sector having the very limited resources, and they are not able to expend or make a big expenses on the marketing to assess the international market. So market assess specifically for USA and Europe for SME sector is very difficult in our country. So you must accommodate and I mean you must support to the SME sector of all the countries.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bilal. We are having communications that I don't think we can understand you. I know our interpreters cannot. We did get most of that in. I do apologize. This is why I said at the beginning, I do not trust technology to behave when we need it the most. So I don't see any other questions, any hands raised. But I will ask then generally, I learned a long time ago as a magazine editor that the best question you can ask an expert is, you know, what do you think is the most important? So I'll open this up to any of the table leaders who are still here. I know a few had to leave because we're running behind. I know Manish Daga is here. I'm not sure who else is, but any of the table leaders, if you just have some comments, what came out of this that either surprised you or that you would want people to take away from your discussions?
May I ask a permission to answer?
Please.
Yeah. Very insightful, actually, Mike. I thank ICAC for putting up these questions, this set of questions on the ICAC World Cafe, because World Cafe is one of the most sought after events. And this very relevant question answered upfront from across the globe will help us make a roadmap out of finding sustainable solutions to this issue. Like e-commerce, yes, Everyone knows it's here to stay, but how to implement? How do we position ourselves? And is only the brand entitled to do it, or any other segment of the textile industry can explore and exploit this opportunity? Sustainability, a very subjective word. Traceability, again, a very subjective word. Would we here stand up and put a price to it? Would it really make any difference to the buyer if they pay something extra so that the supplier complies with all the terms of sustainability and traceability? Because ultimately it's going to come down to the farmer. And now we should not get more into documentation rather than forget the whole process and the whole impact that it was entitled to get out of all the sustainable and organic cotton that we are doing. So that was addressed today, and I really appreciate that. Again, audit fatigue. Can we have a common audit platform? So important, because every company, every association, every country, every continent would like to have a certification of its own. Is it really possible? We are living in a global world now. E-commerce has no boundaries. So why should certification be such a big issue and such a big cost? Somebody has to pay for it, or the people will start finding loopholes, which we do not want to happen in the long run. And going ahead, yes, role of ICAC. This has been discussed in detail during our discussion, and I hope that something very concrete comes out of it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Yes, the challenges faced by SMEs in this new world has been brought up by multiple speakers. So that's going to be an issue that we're surely going to have to put our collective minds on. I don't know if any of the table leaders were able to stay this late, but if there are anybody, I don't see any other questions. If any of the table leaders are present and want to say anything, please do so now. Otherwise, I think we'll just have to wrap up. We're considerably over our time today. Okay, thank you, everybody. Chair.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the presenters for some very interesting presentations and some really good takeaways from that session. As I said, it is an extremely popular session, and we always get good feedback from there. I'm now going to move very quickly on to the closing session, and before I ask the chair to make some closing remarks, I would like to thank all our presenters over the last 3 days for some really world-class, interesting, and really interesting presentations with some really good recommendations and takeaways within those presentations. Also to our interpreters who had to work through a lot of technical difficulties, please don't forget them. To all my staff who put forward an excellent program, but most of all to all of you who have been with us for over the last 3 days, and thank you for your participation. We look forward to seeing all of you again next year, where we will be meeting face to face. And with that, I will now hand over to the chair for his closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. I'd like to just echo Kai's thanks to the delegates, to the expert speakers and participants for joining us for this virtual plenary meeting. The sessions have indeed addressed some of the most timely issues facing the cotton industry, and all have been extremely informative and enlightening. I hope that you all found the meeting productive. I would like to thank the ICAC Secretariat, who have worked extremely hard to bring this meeting together. I can tell you it's not easy pulling together an event like this, and so we all owe them a great deal of thanks and gratitude. With that, I would say farewell from me for now, but I hope that I will get to see many of you again when we're able to return to in-person plenary meetings. With that, I'll turn the floor back to the Secretariat for any closing or logistical remarks.
The only thing that's remaining on the agenda is to see if the Vice Chair has any comment to make. The new chair, I should say, from Côte d'Ivoire, Ambassador Alain Touré. Ambassador, are you there?
Thank you, Executive Director. I don't have any specific comments. I just wanted to congratulate the Secretariat and Kai Hughes for the excellent organization of this plenary. Congratulate all the members of the panel and all the speakers for the topics raised. I believe they have enlightened us greatly. Without forgetting our chair, Patrick Bagnet, who has not had an easy task during his term. I also wish to congratulate him, hoping that the next sessions will occur in more favorable conditions. And I, Chair, thank you so much to all the organizers, and see you soon.
Okay, Chair, I think then we will conclude, and thank you all once again.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.